guess we're close enough to 1 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could we stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're live streaming, and that's great to be able to do that. And my thanks to Stephanie and Petra for figuring that out. They wouldn't let technology hold them back. They figured out how to accomplish this. This is wonderful. For those listening, you know, we've reconfigured the room so that everybody's distanced, and we've been wearing masks, and so hopefully we've protected everybody. Meetings such as these are important. They're important for any organization, and I think possibly they're even more important. And this is kind of ironic. The four of us on this side of the room, Mary Ann, are all new to our positions, and you're like the stalwart. You've been here, you've been holding your position. But I think that being in new positions and new responsibilities just adds to the importance of being able to get together and really talk about where we've been and where we want to go. It is really my hope that this meeting can be the platform that we can build upon, that as we conclude the meeting tomorrow at noon, that we'll really have been able to clearly identify what we want to accomplish in 2021, what our work plan is, our roles and our responsibilities. Stephanie and I spent a great deal of time talking about this agenda. So it is not one of happenstance. It was very specific in terms of what we wanted to accomplish. And I guess just to share a bit of history, from my own experience, it's so critically important that the role of us as council, the role of Stephanie and her senior staff, and the role of the community be well defined. And what we try to do with this agenda is that those three entities, ourselves as council, the staff, community, the committees, I guess, all be integrated. I worked in an industry where the challenges of integration were enormous, and we spent a great deal of time trying to do that. And obviously we don't have that dilemma here, but nonetheless, it's quite easy for those activities to become, dissimilar to one another or move away from one another. So I think that with this agenda, we're trying to do that, and I think from what I've read in terms of the material that you've accomplished a lot of that. Each of us as council, we've said to the community, we've made representations to the community in terms of what we wanted to accomplish. So it's not just a chance. When we said we were going to run for our offices and were elected by the community, what we intended to do. So I think in order to accomplish that, it is only going to be accomplished working with all of these folks, our committees, and really the community at large to be able to do that. The notion of focus is so important. There is nothing more satisfying to an organization is to be able to have results, positive results, to have things accomplished. And I think as we go through our agenda, fortunately, I suppose it's a way of saying it, we don't have any real dire problems. We don't have any real situations that are just any burning platforms. But nonetheless, we have a number of very, very important things that we want to accomplish, and I think the community wants us to accomplish. So I think if we keep focused on those, work cooperatively, collaboratively amongst ourselves, work as a team with all of the staff, work with our community, hear from the community what their needs, what their observations, what their concerns are, respond to those. I think we can say at the end of whatever our terms will be, that we've accomplished something, that we've really gotten things done. And I think that's the elixir, that's the magic potent, to really be able to look back and say, yeah, we did pretty well with that particular, the time that we've been there. So anyway, those are, you know, this is something that I've been really anxious about the past, 7 weeks, 6-7 weeks since the election. So I'm really looking forward to this half day and tomorrow. We intentionally did not put time limits on the presentations. I think maybe about an hour, you know, should make everybody an opportunity to give a lot of discussion. Some may be a little bit longer, some may be a little bit shorter. So it's you know, a little bit after 1. Try to target around 4:30ish to wrap it up. So anyway, and I guess to whomever may be listening, I don't know why I keep looking up there, but text Stephanie or text Stephanie if you have questions.
Text me or email me.
Email. If you have questions or comments or you want things to be asked, you know, we'll try to respond. Okay, so with that, you're up.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This is a quick orientation for you all. You have a book. Petra put a binder in front of you, and you will find the presentations. It's up on the screen. You have hard copies. You have copies of some ordinances that we're going to discuss briefly. In the back, you have notes. So if you want to take that sheet out and make notes on that, you can do so, because you can take this book home with you. You can keep it. For the first kind of, 30, 45 minutes, we're going to give you some updates on some priorities that we had established for last year, and then just a few things that we know of that is ongoing for this year. If you have any questions throughout our presentation, feel free to stop us and ask the questions right then. We can have a great dialogue or conversation about it. Right now, the first person I'm going to turn this over to who's going to give a presentation is Brian. He's our Public Works Manager Director for the town. He's going to update you on the Parkway project, as well as some Public Works staffing issues or things that we would like to bring to your attention. In our agenda here, I don't think we will, but if we kind of go out of order, that's okay. It might be just because as we're talking about something, we might flow into another conversation that might be on the agenda, but it may seem more appropriate to talk about it now. I think that's perfectly fine. So Brian, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, Mayor and Council, for being here and encouraging us to work through these strategic goals that we have for this upcoming year. The first part of the agenda isn't a presentation, it's more of just an update. And there will be more information to come from it, but the Parkway landscape update. Right now, there have been some challenges, specifically with the irrigation. The irrigation is in much worse shape than the contractor had originally thought it would be, and they have found themselves coming at hiccups every part of the way so far and having to stop and fix something. So that has caused us to fall a little bit behind schedule. Just Monday, I had a conversation with Outdoor Spatial Design, who is the landscape architect, working closely with us and the contractor throughout this project. There's going to be a change order coming pertaining to the irrigation, just due to the fact that it was in much worse shape. So I will have a lot more information for you on that. If we would like to go into further detail about it right now, we certainly can, but this will be something that will be coming to Ways and Means and Town Council hopefully pretty soon. But basically, the last updated timeline that we've
Brian,
got.
do you just have an idea of the scale?
I'm sorry?
Do you just have an idea of the scale of the change order?
Yes, so the change order is going to amount to about $40,000. and that's going to include the repair. They've exhausted their allocated money for that they set aside for the irrigation thus far, and there's still some work to be done. So that's going to be including labor and repairs, and the about 4 weeks that it's going to take for them to completely finish the irrigation system and have it fully operational.
Do they still hold a contingency?
I'm sorry?
Do they still hold a contingency?
We haven't made any payments yet. At all.
Right. To my knowledge, no pay applications have been sent out or anything like that. But this is just some, fortunately, I approached the contractor with this initial discussion because it was taking a little bit longer, and I wanted to make sure that he hasn't overstepped into what he's allocated, and he has told me that he now has. The thing about this is all of these changes are absolutely necessary to have a fully functional irrigation system. If they'd have known, then this would have been an added cost onto the initial contract sum. All of the disputes and damages and descriptions have been reviewed by the landscape architect, and they confirm that these are legitimate damages and they are necessary that need to be repaired. So again, we're looking at about a 4-week timeline for completion. Yes, ma'am.
Do they have any guarantee on their repairs, how long that will last?
They're warranted. We've got warranties on everything that's going on the parkway for them. And the good thing though is too, we're going to have a very specific as-built. Right now there's not an as-built that accurately depicts what's on the parkway right now. So the good thing about them going in and being able to rework a lot of this is they will be able to give us a very accurate as-built for how the irrigation system's working.
I know I've had experience with irrigation systems similar to this, and in the end, it turned out you might as well have just gotten a whole new system.
Hindsight, yes. It would have been maybe a little bit more money to do a whole new system, but it's close enough at this point. However, it wasn't known at that point.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Brian, question.
Yes, sir.
So additional 4 weeks, did you say, of work on the irrigation? Is that going to extend the entire time frame by 4 weeks?
So the last correspondence after let's just say they have these 4 weeks and the change order goes through, we're looking at a mid-March in completion date. Good thing is the planting aspect is not going to take much time. He can commit 30 to 40 person crews to be out there, commit to Saturdays to be out there to plant. Talking with the contractor and the superintendent on site, they are pretty optimistic that they'll get all the planting done in about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. So once the irrigation's done, it'll be about no more than 3 weeks of planting. So if there aren't any other questions about that, like I said, I just got all of this information after talking with the landscape landscape architect. So I'll be able to compile this a little bit more coherently to deliver for you all.
Palm trees do look good.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, that's an improvement.
Right. And the work that's been done that's visible thus far, I think we all can agree that they've done a great job. Some of opening up some of those views, especially along the bridge and close to the Cacique area, and seeing those palm trees go up, I think helps us start to get a little visualization about their work.
And my favorite area is the triangles. Are we still replacing those shrubs on the triangles?
Yes, ma'am. That's going to be kind of an end of project. They're more or less isolating that area. So at the end of the project is when we'll see all that work being done.
We're going to name them after you.
Just listening to you, Brian, the problem with the existing system, not to put blame, but was it a fault of maintenance? I mean, is it so that whatever's being replaced, and we will have as-built so that who's ever going to maintain it knows how to maintain it, and so that in a period of time we're not struggling with whatever caused the system that's in there now to be so bad?
Right. So again, without having talked to our current maintenance company and just having got all this information myself, what it has been relayed to me is that there was lack of maintenance to some of these aspects that are needed to be replaced. So I'll be able to get all this stuff together, have a meeting with our current maintenance company and the landscape architect, and kind of ask, what happened here to where all these things need to get replaced.
So then given that, is there going forward?
I'm sorry?
You intend to use the same maintenance contractor going forward?
Well, that's a conversation that we're kind of in the middle of right now. We kind of feel like that this is going to be a new landscape, which means a new scope of work, which means this should probably go back out for bid again. And I'm sure they will bid on it. But knowing what we know or knowing what we might find out might sway us.
So if the issue with the current irrigation was partially a maintenance issue, was it the responsibility of our current landscaper to provide that maintenance?
Yes.
So is there an opportunity to recover some of this incremental cost from them?
That'll be a conversation that I have with them. I think we all agree here that if there's something that wasn't being done, then we shouldn't have to pay for that. If there's something that we've been paying for them to do, doing these irrigation audits and changes and everything that haven't been getting done, we absolutely need to recover those costs. And some of this stuff, again, there was a small portion of it that got damaged by the road work. That was foreseeable, but a lot of this a lot of this information that I've been given is leading us to believe that there was a lack of maintenance on the irrigation system.
I don't want to take up a lot of time with this, but just as an aside, once upon a time we did look at doing this work ourselves. And as the association has done, and the huge commitment of resources that they have to maintain the roads, we've always struggled with the greenery in terms of what they can do, what they can't do, their capabilities, etc. And so the investment that we have now in the landscaping, and two, when you find, not you, but when we realize what they did not do, and it's just something that you may want to keep in the back of your mind when it comes time to possibly look at this job in terms of moving forward.
And if I can just say, and just moving forward, we had talked about that, yes, we had to rebid out the project, as Brian said, for the maintenance. In terms of any type of recoup from the greenery, we will have to go back and really truly look at the contract that we have with them to see if that was something that was truly written in the contract for them to do some sort of review. I don't believe the greenery put the irrigation system in. And so if we do, what we could do is we can sit down with the town attorney, Joe, we can review the contract and then make a determination if in fact we can do anything. We may find out that we can't because it wasn't spelled out in the contract. Or we can find out that yes, it was, and then from there we would have to then talk with Joe and figure out what we can do, what we can or cannot do.
Right, thank you. So if there are no other questions, comments about the landscape project, then we can jump forward, which it sounds like we can. Is just the arrow button, Petra? Okay.
Or you can use it on the computer. See the little arrow on the computer.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, well, Mr. Mayor, is actually kind of a good kind of segue into this next piece. This next part, we're going to be talking about the Public Works Department, where we are now and where we could be going. Currently, it's a one-man department that oversees operations, maintenance of public services and infrastructure, to include the municipal complex, Key Island Parkway, along with Beachwalker Drive, the solid waste and recycling services, and the beach. Those are kind of the big major components of the Public Works Department. Some challenges. As the island continues to grow, new challenges are presenting themselves, making it clear that the town has to rethink the way we currently approach these situations. Litter on the parkway is increasing a lot. It's always been an issue, but the more people are traveling the parkway, the more trucks with no bed covers and trailers There's litter flying out of the parkway every single day. Abandoned beach chairs and tents on the beach. Renters come down, they get this stuff, and the wind will damage it, or it gets corroded, or they don't want to take it back, so they'll leave their abandoned chairs and tents on the beach, as you can see in the picture. Solid waste volume is increasing, and then also more residential solid waste services. We've got more homes being built. That means more solid waste services that are coming onto the island. At the beginning of the pandemic, the town was faced with a lot of unknowns about operations, financial impacts, and island-wide health and safety. Initial projections were not looking very good for the town's financials, and so I wanted to investigate ways to cut costs specifically within the Public Works Department. And this is where we came up with the idea of possibly a Public Works assistant. This Public Works assistant would act mainly as a groundskeeper to the municipal complex and the property within the town's jurisdiction, Beachwalker Drive, the Parkway, and the beach. So how would a Public Works assistant be beneficial? Initially, it could alleviate some of our current contract costs. Currently, if you split apart the landscape maintenance contract that we have with the greenery, right now it's bundled as the municipal complex, Beachwalker Drive, and the Parkway. But if we were to pull those apart, it's about $60,000 annually in that contract that's dedicated to maintenance of the municipal complex. And beach trash pickup. Currently, we pay $42,000 a year for Carolina Waste to service the trash receptacles on the beach. So another way it could be beneficial, more focus and accountability on the town's aesthetics. Again, that's the parkway litter, the maintenance of the complex, making sure the beach looks pristine, and assist with public service related calls. And again, so the daily operations, the day-to-days of the Public Works assistant, daily maintenance of the municipal complex, monitor trash receptacles on the beach as needed, litter control on the parkway, and assist with calls that come in pertaining to Public Works.
Brian, does the Sora rail site fit into this, or you'll get to that?
Yes, so we can hit that. There's going to be another discussion about that actually tomorrow.
Okay.
But as the owners of that site and maintenance of that site, yes, that would fit in to the Sora rail.
So this person would, and I'm putting it very grossly, but he would be picking up trash on the parkway every day. He would be going out to the beach and looking at the trash receptacles every day.
Every day during the summertime, and that's where we can work into logistics. But as we've seen in the past 2 summers, the beach, the beach truck operates once a day during the peak season. So every day of the week, that beach truck is out there emptying those receptacles. Mm-hmm. We've seen multiple times, especially this year when the island was so crowded with family members and guests and everybody trying to escape the pandemic coming down here, that those cans needed to be emptied at least twice a day, and just wasn't in our contract. First of all, with Carolina Waste, and that's a lot to ask. Driving a truck up and down the beach twice a day when it's that crowded, because right now we can time the high tides or go first thing in the morning before it gets too crowded with people, and it makes it a lot safer. So yes, working on the beach, maybe we've got hot boardwalks, some that are more crowded than others. Mm-hmm. So being able to go out there when we get phone calls about overflowing receptacles and being able to swap those out would be a big help. And then the litter on the parkway. There's not litter pickup on the parkway every day per our contract with the greenery. So it could be 3 days that the same piece of trash is sitting there, especially if it's over a weekend, before they come around to get it picked up. So just being able to stay on top of these things and make sure we stop those phone calls from even coming in the first place. So forward vision. As the island continues to grow, it makes sense for the town to grow with it. One way to do this, as we've kind of talked about, is to begin integrating some of these responsibilities that are now contracted out into the Public Works Department. Similarly, expanding the department will open up opportunities for new growth and development. some beach solid waste initiatives, landscape integration, enhancement of public facilities, and perhaps there's some community involvement initiatives that we could find coming with this forward vision. So it didn't make it into the PowerPoint, but I think might be better if this is printed out for you guys. These are some scenarios that Stephanie and Dorota and I had talked about, kind of some financial scenarios of what the hiring process would look like. Would you like to see this again?
Do you have enough copies?
I do.
Okay. And we'll, and
You're very welcome.
if you have extra, we'll eventually have to give Petra a record.
I can give her this one too. But so just looking through it, scenario 1, we're adding 1 full-time position, which is a public works assistant responsible for some of the things that we discussed about maintenance. And we don't necessarily have to get into the exact numbers at this point. This was all just kind of really rough estimate. Didn't go get a quote for a truck just yet, but we kind of went on the high side just to overshoot it a little bit. Scenario 2, 2 part-time positions responsible for the things that we discussed in the presentation. In scenario 3, 1 full-time and 1 part-time position. So the reason it's tricky for 1 full-time position is when it comes to the summertime. Let's say we did take over picking up the solid waste on the beach. Tough to ask somebody to take no days off and never be sick in the summertime. So we need to make sure that we cover that. And then the other 2 obviously are two different hires, but these are just some numbers again that Dorota and Stephanie and I looked at and kind of came up with for the sake of a presentation. Are there any questions about any of these expenses?
What is the CW current contract?
Carolina Waste.
Oh, Carolina.
And again, not to jump into tomorrow, but you've been able to isolate the contract with Carolina Waste for this responsibility.
Correct. Correct.
Will you be able to isolate that for sewer rail, so as we get into the conversation tomorrow?
I could get that information, I believe. I think it's just a matter of looking at what the services are and how many times they service it, and we could have those numbers for you.
Okay, that'll be helpful. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So are there any questions or any comments that we can discuss at this point?
Just in terms of protocol step, what's the expectation for today? Just that this is for our information? It'll come, I mean, you're gonna keep working on this?
Well, for this, we had started looking at this process of expanding the Public Works Department under the previous administration because we were asked to, and we received a lot of concerns and complaints about the aesthetics of the island, the beach, the parkway. So we had started looking at various possibilities. So we've had this information now for a couple of months now. So the protocol for today is to bring this to you guys' attention. We can put this as part of the budget discussion because if this is something that we're going to move forward with, it would be in a budget adjustment. We will have to, depending on which scenario we decide to go with, we'll have to potentially amend our contract with Carolina Waste. So I see this as the next steps when Dorota talk about the budget, is that as part of our budget discussion, if this is a direction that you all will like to move in, we would like to know probably within the next month or 2 so that we can start the process of talking with Carolina Waste, getting specific quotes for a truck or whatever equipment that we might need, and then understanding if this is going to be a part-time employee or a full-time employee, what are we looking for them to do. So this would be, I envision this, if we get somewhat of a green light to move forward, this will be incorporated in the budget discussion.
Since you can make a case that this is all tourism related, can you come out and distribute?
Some can. We cannot do the whole 100%. A lot of times we can do 80% because we were able to justify 80%, the 80-20.
So yeah, a lot of the stuff we already do pull stuff out of restricted funds, but,
Not the building,
yeah,
not the town hall.
yeah.
But the parkway, the maintenance of the parkway is.
and the beach.
And the beach would be included in that.
So, yeah, so even though this is a cost to us, you know, if it's restricted or unrestricted, we can use restricted funds for some of the cost, and the other portion would be out of our general fund. So it could be an 80-20, but it depends on specifically how we word this and what this person does.
And right, again, Mr. Mayor, some of this stuff we'll kind of circle back around to in tomorrow's discussion. But again, for this presentation, this is what we've got.
So how does everybody feel just in terms of a general reaction? Again, it's going to be coming back to us via a couple of different avenues, but for right now, I mean,
Well, I think there's no question that the island is looking kind of ratty this year. And I think we need to address that because it ties into the tourism aspect. It also ties into our branding efforts
yes.
that are going to go forward. And if I understand correctly about being able to use simply 80% of restricted funds, that's tax money that we're having trouble spending, at least this year, because of so many things that have been canceled, like Arts Council. You know, that's just money that's just sitting there. And I don't know how that cycles through, whether that disappears if you don't use it over a period of time or what. But anyway, as a rule, I'm in favor of exploring this concept more.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you know, there's only so much you can contract for.
Yes.
Some of it you have to do yourself.
Right, and on that too, you know, we could always pay for increased services, but we're also going to be paying for increased services. And if we could again take that cost away and integrate it back into our own department, I think we've still got a cost saving opportunity, and I think that we absolutely have better accountability.
And I think that's a key factor there as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's worth exploring. I'm actually surprised that you're the only person in the department. I did not know that. So.
I bet performance reviews are interesting out there, you know.
Yeah.
I'm really hard on my guys.
Yeah, properly managed, and I'm not sure which of the scenarios makes more sense, but we can get into that. But I can see us doing a better job and not spending a ton of money, but more effectively doing the job. So I'm open to this.
As am I. I know myself, when I called Brian or emailed him, I realized he's the only person. And we've had such growth on Kiowa, but some of our services have not kept up with that for one reason or another. So I think it's a very valid point to look at this now and see how we can improve existing situations.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Stephanie Braswell Edgerton, who is our Communications Director Manager.
Okay, so in addition to our e-blasts, the social media, and town notes, our website is our powerhouse of information and one of the primary ways we communicate with the public. And the analytics, this is just a snapshot, but analytics is the way that I use and we use as the town to evaluate how our audiences are using our site and where the traffic's going. And in 2020, the numbers featured here is the number of page views and the average time spent on a page. And just as a matter of difference, the time that people spend on the page is actually pretty good for us, because our goal, unlike an e-commerce site, is to get people where they're going, find the information that they want, and get them off.
What's the bounce rate? What is that metric?
So for today, it's kind of complicated. So
Okay, never mind.
yeah, I can get you that definition, but it's kind of it incorporates several of these numbers. So if I could get with you afterwards, it can open up, that's like Pandora's box, so, yes, sir.
Another question from all of us high tech. Is page views the same as hits?
Yes,
So we had 1 million hits on our website? Is that what we would? Okay, thank
yes,
you.
sir.
Wow.
Okay, and so the top 10 pages visited are, and they're reflected here, you probably can't see them very close, but I'll go through them really quickly, is our homepage, which is expected, our latest news section, which is like town announcements, and our visitors page, our beach access and rules page, recreation, news, events, COVID, resource page, rental information, and dining. So as you can see, a lot of it is tourism related information. It has substantial traffic.
Stephanie, can I ask you a question on that last slide?
Yes.
Can you just understand? So, of course, our top two is, for instance, the homepage.
Mhm.
And then it may say number 8, COVID. So when someone goes to our homepage, is it basically saying they go to our homepage, either, does it capture, is within that number, is it capturing, they go to our homepage and they click something else to go to something else? Or they go to our homepage, they see what they're looking for in our homepage and they click off and go get off our website? Does that make sense?
No, so the homepage, it's going to incorporate the homepage their
So
initial
every time
hit.
so for everything, they're gonna always go to our homepage?
Yes,
So our
yes.
homepage is kind of,
That's
by default,
a
gonna always be
given,
number
always
one?
going to be the top, right?
Okay, got it.
I have a question to some people that use our online services, like all the businesses, people who apply for a business license, they go to homepage first and then on the portal.
That's correct.
So in theory, all the numbers 2 through 10 should
Should
add up to number 1?
In theory, yeah.
Yeah, in theory, yeah.
Any more questions?
It should, but they won't, yeah.
Well, maybe some people, if you Google, for example, maybe events, you don't go to homepage, maybe it brings you to the
Yeah,
event.
you can go,
It's
right.
more than,
Yeah.
It depends on what your Google search is. That's why I say it's a little complicated how these numbers come in.
Even if all those total
A
ones.
lot of people got started.
no, definitely, because you just go to your
Right.
directly.
I'm sorry. There has to be a huge number missing. Those that doesn't add up to anywhere near.
That's what I'm saying, it's not going to, because the 2 through 10 is not gonna add up to number 1.
No,
No. But 1 through 10 doesn't add up to 1 million.
no, well,
So page views. Okay, so let me see if I can educate. So this number is you can run these matrix in several different ways. And so we might want to just take a different, for purposes of today, I'm just trying to show you the top 10 pages visited based on our website traffic. So do you want me to go back and talk about matrix more, or?
There's,
I don't mean to confuse it. That's okay. I just.
keep on moving.
Okay.
We'll just call it statistics and move on.
Okay. I can actually, it might be helpful for me to give a full, like, how we do the analytics separately, maybe for a council meeting.
That could be.
Okay. And this is just a GWiz. This is the top 10 countries of origin of where they access our site from. Age and gender. So our last, specifically regarding what as you know, there's a placeholder for website redesign. And our last redesign was in 2016, and we transitioned from a basic government website to one that could be used as a community asset and our tourism resource. And some of our strengths that came out of that were we clearly separated between visitors, residents, businesses, and government. To channel people where they wanted to go. Before it was really, we didn't give much information regarding the community at all as far as tourism related interest is concerned. And it's fairly easy to navigate, aesthetically pleasing, and we had the ticker feature, which is nice because it was able to scroll instant messages across. So some of our shortfalls, and I'm going to bump out to the actual website here to give you some of the examples of this. Okay. So this is a really large website in general. And our homepage, while these are called the Mega Nav, and so they kind of direct you where you would want to go based on who you are and what you're looking for. But it does ask a lot, because we're asking people to are you a visitor, resident, business, government? You also have these options up here where they can go to like quick links, and then if we miss you up there, then it asks you here to define what you're looking for. And also everything there is above what they call the fold, which is what you can see on a desktop, regular screen. Everything below here is below the fold. And so this is a substantial amount of information to have underneath the fold, as they call it.
So you got to that just by scrolling down the homepage?
Yeah, so there's a lot of scrolling. There's actually a lot of people that don't know that the rest exists, right? Because they don't scroll. And so while it's great information, it really is, it's asking too much of our audience. And in this world of short attention spans, it needs to be a little bit more simplistic. And also, as we talk about, as you mentioned about branding, this really, the colors and things like that, which, not everybody considers to be important, but it does play into your brand. So, in the next round, we will be considering some of that as well, because these are kind of like, we got a Tex-Mex theme going on here, color-wise.
Stephanie, in 2016, how custom is that? How much is that off the shelf? Whoever you used back then.
This is a custom-built site.
This is
right, and so and
so
one
you
of
contracted with the town contracted with a software
with a web design team, and they built it from scratch, which also plays into your cost, because there's a lot of agencies out there that have like these government templates, and they will bid on it and they will look substantially cheaper. And they will be, because they already have these templates that they can kind of plug and play information into. And so, but what we were looking for and what we got was a custom built website, and so that did factor into the price.
And I think with this company, if the next question when we come out and look at the cost, this company, unfortunately for them, they really underbidded the price, because they didn't realize that for us, we had a lot of stuff with our environmental arts council, just so much that in the end, I think they've come and said, the deal that we got was a great deal. And so I think we may have paid, was it initially it was $40,000. $40,000. And we're now putting the budget $100,000.
Yeah.
So the company, Capitol Hill, has said it really was underbidded. They just didn't realize the magnitude of what we were looking for.
Well, and to your point, some of the things we've added on, and it'll get over here to some of our cost considerations and components that will affect price, will be our wildlife directory, which I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it lists all of our wildlife, and they're able to go through and see different species of what's native on the island and what's present on the island. So that's a pretty extensive directory. And so as now we've added our native plant database and our meeting calendars. And all of those things kind of play into the price because they have to custom build it for us. And then the other thing that plays into price will be custom website developers typically, they actually have to build two sites, because the site for a desktop or PC is totally separate than the mobile responsive. It doesn't just automatically, fix itself to your screen size. So they actually have to build two different sites. So a lot of people don't realize that, and then so that reflects in the price as well. So some improvements that we've already kind of talked about is just improved menu options, reduced clicks for the consumer, and the other thing that we've really noticed is needed is a prominent spot on the homepage for our announcements. Right now, they have to go under news and click in the news to actually see some of the more important announcements, or we have to use that feature that you saw when I first went on, which pops up and doesn't allow them to do anything until you X out of it. And one of the other things that, just the way technology is, a lot of people, and we don't have this option, is using video integration. And I'll show you a website that has used that recently, that you'll see kind of the upgrade in. So technology has advanced, and this site is 2 years old now, and so we need to obviously move forward in that as well, since we do represent the island, and we are dealing with a lot of tourist-based traffic.
So if you look at the Charleston site carefully, some of it is still photos, some of it's motion picture.
Right.
But they integrate it so you get a sense that it's all live.
That's right. Okay. Is there any other questions on the website other than the matrix of the numbers?
No, I think it's important because this is where everybody starts.
Yeah.
If you're in California and you're thinking about coming to the East Coast and you've heard about Kilo, this is where you're going. If you're in New Jersey, same thing. It makes a big difference how many people visit us and what they do when they're here.
It's true. Anybody else?
Our sales manager.
The RFP process itself, where are you at on that?
Well, I'm just beginning that. But actually, not really, because we have one that we used the last time that I'm just building off of and kind of integrating some of the things that we need to build upon our original RFP. A lot of it is standard stuff that we need that's kind of technical, but I think probably about a month away from having that complete.
So I heard $100,000. Is that just a placeholder right now?
It is, okay. Yes, it is a placeholder. The last range of, they were, anywhere from 40 to 150. There was one that came in at 200, but that was like a team out of New York that had 15 people that all hands on deck for a website. So it's really it's going to be a broad price range, and it's going to be based on what some of the components that we have,
So when you do an RFP for a new website, how specific do you get on what it looks like, rather than just defining the kind of the desired state and let the experts come back to you with options on how to configure things? I mean, are we really specific when we do an RFP, or is it just conceptually?
It's more technical written about what we want the capability. As far as the design and all of that, it really is it's on us and to be involved every step of the way. And a lot of different marketing companies will actually have these services. So you get a little bit. Hopefully you get with someone that is able to think all of that through with you. The firm that we used this last time is really more of an e-commerce builder, and so I don't think that they really, and also that lends to, if you have a brand yourself, if you have, like, for instance, the community association, they just went through a rebranding, and everything they have is uniform now. They use everything, and that, from their PowerPoint slides to their letterhead to their e-blast, everything looks the same, and so they had something to present for their new website that they're working on. The town kind of doesn't have that so much, other than our logo and our seal that's kind of, evolved as time has gone on and as we adopted the trademark. So some of that we'll need to be working on during this process. Yeah.
Stephanie, over the period of time, our partners, the folks from the association, the folks from the resort, the folks from the park, Is anybody interested in embedding within this links to their sites? Is that even come up? Is that something that,
We already have a lot of the resort, the community association, anywhere that we have where we kind of have been operating as we're going to put you to where you need to go. So if they're looking up a subject matter about, for instance, sprinkler heads or something like that, if they're on our site and looking at different things, it goes to wherever, like we link to, this is who handles that.
Oh.
So some of that's already in there, but there certainly can be improvements as far as that's
Okay.
concerned. Anybody else?
Does that go both ways? If I go to Kika's website? And
They're pretty good about it, actually. They're pretty good about it, but they're in the middle of a website redesign as well. So, but yes, we've tried to, kind of put people where they are because, as you know, not everybody knows who does what.
One of the things the community association's done and branded themselves is highlight community to help eliminate the K problem.
That's right.
And it's useful.
It is.
Now people are beginning to say, okay, that's the community association.
Right.
Different from the town of Keel Island.
Right.
Which is helpful. So they thought about things in a good way.
It's true. Okay. Well, then we will are we ready to jump forward then, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, so meeting protocols, communication, and media. So this is just kind of administrative stuff. When our agenda's posted, all the items and materials are made public and have the potential to incite a media story. So Friday before a town council meeting, when it's posted, journalists and news reporters, they're looking for stories, especially the young ones. So, anything on the agenda, we should be ready to talk about publicly, or at least in general sense, when it goes on the agenda and when it's posted online. The town council meetings are open to the public, live streamed and cataloged on our YouTube channel. And there really isn't an option for editing, and it's not a good practice to take things down. So, that just lends itself to audio when you're behind the dais or in a setting like this. Your sound can carry to live mics, so a good rule of thumb is if you're in this room, just be mindful of what you're talking about. I know. Not at all directed at you. But things that you think, I'm going to say a little something to my neighbor, it can be reflected in our YouTube channel. So. And then interaction with the media. So our official town spokespersons are the mayor, the town administrator, town attorney, and communications manager, unless otherwise granted. And there are those instances. For one, sitting right here, Jim Jordan. I'm obviously not going to speak to science and biology issues on the island, so oftentimes he's granted that privilege, and so he kind of knows how to navigate that as well. If you would, please notify me when you get inquiries from the media. I can either take the request and deal with it myself, or I can help you in drafting responses. And as town council members, we're not trying to censor you because you are obviously members of the community, and but you do represent the town. So being mindful of that on any kind of forums, IKEA, anything like that. That if you're going to say something that's outside of the official stance of the town, to just make sure that you say something of the effect of, it's my personal opinion, something of that matter.
So all these emails that I get that are captured by the junk mail filter, I've opened a couple of them to look, and they're from journalists or somebody trying to sell us a service or something. Do I just ignore those, or do I send those on to somebody? I have 2 or 3 of those a day.
As far as like the service, are you meaning, is it like marketing or trying to sell us some sort of? You can send those to me, and I'll vet them. Some of them are legitimate, like for instance, the People's Choice Award and things like that from different travel magazines. A lot of times they're trying to sell you, an icon that you've been awarded or something like that. So I'm happy to filter any of those emails and vet them.
But the Nigerian prince, you don't really need to.
No, I don't think so.
But I do get one from the same guy every day, and he's.
I wonder who that is.
I'll send it to you. You can tell me.
Okay. Yeah, always happy to help. And so if you are, if you do end up speaking with the media or getting in interaction with them, we're always assuming that everything's on the record, and never leaving a no comment. One of the biggest things that really has gotten better over the years is that we've been able to work with the media to kind of be able to tell our own story. That's like really, really important in the communications world. And especially with the Post and Courier and things like that. Before, we really didn't have, or at least until this department was established, if they couldn't get a hold of the mayor, if they couldn't get a hold of a council member, they'll run with the story whether you participate or not. And so our approach is to obviously do our best to accommodate their deadlines or work with them to get them the information they need in the time that they need it. And so we have been working, and obviously what we've been through, but working through just being more and more transparent, open communication, and rebuilding that trust in the community and with the journalists and the newspapers. They now know that they can get a hold of me, go straight to my cell phone, and I'm going to work with them and get them as much information as I possibly can. So social media, love it or hate it, it is here to stay, and it has changed the news. It used to be that they would come to you and say, I'm doing a story in a couple days, and I need this, that, and the other. And now, because of the way that people leak things out all the time, that's how journalism has happened. They just kind of put information out a little bit at a time. And so when news break, their bosses expect them to cover it immediately. So it's just a little bit of sometimes it can lead to careless reporting and things of that nature, but it's just kind of where we're at in the world and the current climate. And just a little tidbit, 53% of U.S. adults say that they get their news from social media or one of the platforms. And also, reporters obviously not just get their news from the Associated Press. They actually search content on social media platforms for news stories. This is four of the stories that were published this year that were from social media, two of which were of the towns, or one of which was the towns. The rest was just random people on the island taking pictures. And then I'd get calls for, hey, can you comment on, I hear that a bunch of man o' wars have washed up in such and such. So just being aware of that. Does anybody have any questions on that portion?
So the correct answer when approached is, let me give you Stephanie's phone.
Yes, that would be great. Yeah, I can handle that.
And make sure you tell them the right Stephanie.
Right, that's the truth, yeah. We're always doing that, doing the shuffle, the Stephanie shuffle.
Yeah.
Well, just to that end, I've had conversations with both Stephanies relative to information that's passed on to the community. And, I believe in this. It's not in lieu of the social media aspects that's available to all of the residents, but we have to do everything we can to make sure that Stephanie has information, accurate information, factual information, to be able to disseminate that. And we talked about, e-blasts, and I think there's nothing more frustrating than when anybody just can't find answers to questions that they may have. And not so that they don't turn to their neighbors, but many times your neighbors don't know any more about it than they may have, and it just becomes storylines, and it goes on and on and on, and it takes on a life of its own. So we have to make sure that we provide that, Stephanie, with everything that we can, as frequently as we can, as accurately as we can, whether it's from committees that we sit on or wherever we may be. I just think this is really important. I just think this is really important. So we have a responsibility to do that.
And one thing I would like to add, we're going to talk about this, it's just really quick. The e-blast that we do is bi-weekly,
That's
not
right.
unless there's things going on that we have to send out special e-blasts. But one thing I think that people don't realize, I don't know if you've already said this, but our e-blast, we do not have all owners on that. You have to sign up for it. Kika has all the owners. We do not have access to Kika's e-blast. We at times can get access to it, if it's used for a specific purpose, and then we have to agree to destroy the e-blast or the list after it's used. So our e-blast that we have is from owners signing up themselves, but we also have, as Stephanie mentioned, just the general public. We can have the news reporters be part of that e-blast. So we have a large e-blast list, but it's not of all property owners. So even our e-blast that we send out may not hit every property owner, not unless they specifically sign up for it.
That's correct.
So when we get an email from PICA that is basically a reiteration of something the town has sent out, and we ask them to do that?
A lot of times Stephanie has a good relationship with them that they'll pick up
Okay.
some of our information just because they do have access to all the property owners' emails.
And during emergency operations, part of our protocol is for them to duplicate our
Yeah, that's
messaging.
what I was asking.
Yes, yes.
That's part of our
Why
protocol.
can't we get the list from them?
Well, for one, they're a private company and we're a public company, and so I think it's more of the fact of sharing, of letting owners know that they're releasing their email addresses, because Kika, while sometimes, you know, they may act like it's a quasi-public company, they're entity, they're not. So it is a private communication, private entity that has those email addresses.
I think the e-blast is really helpful, and, you know, maybe we should have a campaign to get people to sign up, because it is extremely useful. In the morning, something happens, and by the afternoon, you have an e-blast out.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, I had just spoken to Stephanie about this recently, when I realized you had to sign up, I thought, oh, we have to start telling people, sign up, because it's really valuable.
Stephanie, that's an excellent point. If we could ask your colleagues in the association, you know, periodically, twice a year, three times a year, just to put a little byline, to ask them to do just what Mary Ann's saying, to sign up, you know, and have that link to the e-blast, because the people that we're telling probably already have signed up.
It's true.
So, but we have to find the differential between what our list is and what the association's list is. And the more we can get that smaller, then we've accomplished something. So maybe they'll just do that.
They do, actually.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they do.
And they do have 4,500 people on this e-blast list,
So
but
we,
it's a lot of,
for the town notification, I have our database broken up into, like town notifications, there's arts council notifications, there's rental managers, things of that nature. There's a total of 10,000 contacts in there. But the town notifications list, which is pretty much the primary list that I use anyways, that's got about 4,200 people in it. And that number ebbs and flows a little bit because people can unsubscribe and people forward it on to their friends and they subscribe, so it fluctuates a little bit.
But you are like new owners moving to the island aren't necessarily going to know that you
Right.
have to
Sign up.
that's right.
Yeah, right. The other thing that's kind of, that Stephanie and the mayor talked about recently is that some of the outlets where we would typically place town notes or put a little flyer or something like that, a lot of those things have gone away. And like the Sandcastle, they no longer allow you to place things out, just paper out, because, and like Java, they used to have that board. Things like that, people are really moving away from it. One is because they then have to determine who they're gonna allow to put their stuff out, and it kind of starts to look junky. And so, and then also a lot of things have gone digital, so you have that obstacle a little bit that, you know, but we did talk about maybe approaching Fresh Fields of having a nice, you know, stand there where people could pick up the town notes or something, so that they do have they can walk by and grab something. But those opportunities on the island have really been going away slowly but surely. Anything else? Okay. So switching gears a little bit, the state accommodations.
Oh, I'm sorry, just before you jump into that.
Sure.
The timetable for your RFP relative to budget and the like, we're gonna keep the $100,000 placeholder in the budget, because you're not gonna have the RFP completed out, just back, decisions made budgets.
You're gonna have to, yes, because you'll have
Okay.
you'll have a quicker turnaround time than you think, and they're gonna wanna deposit before they do anything, so.
We'll at least have even if the contract's not signed, the goal is to have, at least, we'll know who we would like to go with. So, for instance, if the company that we all think is great actually came in at $120,000, we'll be able to come to you all during the budget process and ask for an additional $20,000. If it's less, then that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good.
So yeah, hopefully, so the goal is,
I'm thinking
Okay.
21-22 budget, but we're still working off of 2021 budget.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
all right.
yeah,
All
'cause this is in the 2021 budget, the 100,000. So we definitely want to try to
Move
spend
along
or else we'll
quickly.
carry it over.
Right. Okay. Promotional fund. So state accommodation tax. So that is the just for clarification, that's the tax the tourists pay on hotel and rental charges for accommodations when they stay on Kiowa. And the way that this makes its way to us and how it's distributed is it comes from the state to the town. The first $25,000 must be allocated to the general fund. And then the remaining funds have to be distributed as follows. 5% must be allocated to the general fund. 30% of the remaining balance must be allocated to a tourism program. That's awarded by town council, and it's currently being received by the Charleston Visitors Bureau. The remaining is the one that you're probably most familiar with, that the State Accommodation Tax Committee, that they review applications, make recommendations to town council for approval. For today's purposes, we're talking about this pot right here, not this pot. So the state law regarding this promotional fund is it must be allocated to a special fund and used for advertising, promotion, and increase of tourism. It can be distributed to one or more organizations. They just have to have a tourism program in place. The municipality can create one. It just has to follow membership standards, which we'll talk about at the end of this section. And it just has, like anything else, pre- and post-year reporting and expenditures and a rendering of accounting of the expenditures. All of these expenditures are reviewed by the state's Tourism Expenditure Review Committee. And this is the numbers for the last 10 years that have been given to the CVB. And
This is the 30%, this is the value.
that's that one pot that we're talking about, yes. And so while there is a lot of value in our relationship with the CVB, and while as a part of the Greater Charleston area, we should be supporting them as a coastal community, there has been a growing desire to use some of these funds and keep it back to promote Kiowa as a community itself. And never taking it completely away from the CVB, but retaining a portion of it to use for marketing purposes and tourism-related purposes. And last year I was given the task of looking into how the town might facilitate that. And what came forth out of that is the recommendation for a tourism committee. And I put together a little mock committee for you to see. It would be 5 to 7 members, a majority in the hospitality and lodging industry, and a possible town council liaison. All of these people are currently already in some way, shape, or form doing marketing on the island, and they're paid professionals. So that's what the mock committee looked like. But this would be an advisory committee and a working committee, and they could be formed by ordinance or informally without. And we would have to build an effective tourism program and marketing strategy, have a separate accounting fund. It actually wants to look a lot like Arts Council Committee, which is what we already have for our arts and cultural events. However, there's going to be a lot of tasks associated with this, serving as a point of contact for agencies, outlets. There's going to be creation of marketing assets, managing the budget, managing the effectiveness of the program. And so this isn't something that anyone here could just absorb. It's its own animal, so to speak. So this is just an example of how year 1, year 2 might look if you were to decide that you still would like to move forward with this format. So it looks, first we would need council to approve it. We would give the CVB a notification of our intents, and we would begin to develop a scope of work and a charter for the committee, and work on establishing who out of the island entities would participate in this committee. And because we want it to be a collective thing, we would want a representative from all of the major players on the island. We want to all be working in the same direction and be okay with the way that the island is being marketed. So this is just an example of year 1, what we might keep back, 15%, give 85 to the CVB. These are some of the tasks that would have to be created, or some of the assets that we would need, digital, video. There's even a lot of municipalities that have gone this route have actually just split their government side and have like a tourism website on its own. There's different options for that. We would need to have a marketing strategy that would be able to be measured. And so then, year 2, year 3, if this is really just conceptual. So if you decide that you still would like to move forward in this, there's a lot more work that needs to be done here. Again, just conceptual.
So the thought is, if I can paraphrase, this is let's call it $500,000. Right now is going to the Charleston Business Bureau, good organization. They basically promote people coming to Charleston.
That's correct.
But it doesn't specifically necessarily help you.
That's right.
It might,
Mhm.
but not specific. By carving off a portion to start modestly and then maybe letting it grow to some level, never quite giving up CDB, we could more specifically guide people to think about coming to Q, which obviously people like the resort, the other hotel, and others would think is a good idea, because they're trying to do it as well.
Right.
And they'd be an integral part of it.
Right.
Yeah, given a budget of $500,000, you could, if you took 25%, you'd have a big chunk of money relative to what's going on there.
That's right.
Seems to make some good sense.
Right.
And the resort does participate in the
CVB. Mhm.
Right,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I don't think we
They-
want to give that up at all.
And they do promote the barrier islands and the coastal communities around Charleston. Their thought process is, as the more they promote Charleston, it trickles down. But obviously, there's been a little bit of desire to see there be more prominence for Kiowa, especially as the developer kind of moves out, and we're going to lose some of that was reflected in the housing study.
Is there any measurement at all, I'm sorry, is there any measurement at all in terms of the main driver of activity on this island comes from the resort? I would think it would be, number 1 would be the resort, number 2 would be the developer, maybe the third would be CVB or something. Is there any way to ascertain that?
Can you ask that again? Do you mean like just
A
as far as
couple-
like
a couple
tourism?
A couple's renting here, a couple
Yes.
wants to come visit here.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that the main driver that got that couple from Michigan to come down to Kiowa was the resort.
Sure.
Yeah.
Resort or any of the write-ups in coastal living or southern living or
Well,
any of the
the
travel
write-ups-
destination.
Let's face it, they're the ones who are,
Sure, right.
But
Yeah,
coastal living, those other places, does that come, is the CVB driving that, or those are just media in their own right that are picking up?
It would be both. So some of that would be them working behind the scenes to get the island featured in an editorial, and then some of it would obviously be just like they do the People's Choice Award, and people actually vote on what's the best island in the Southeast or something like that. It kind of works both ways, but a lot of the bigger ones that you see in like departures and things like that, those are they don't just appear there. Those are based on relationships and working that out to be featured editorial wise.
So is our motivation in doing this to make sure that we are adequately replacing what we believe is gonna be a decrease in the partner's role in this? Or is it to actually have incremental promotion for the island?
I would see starting out as incremental.
I would agree. I also think, if you look at the next couple of years, if I were Charleston and the Charleston Visitors Bureau, they've got some new building to do down
Sure
in
do.
Charleston, big time.
Big time.
And that's gonna be their focus. They have to. Those hotels are not doing well, the restaurants aren't doing well, tourism's not doing well.
That's correct.
Kiowa doesn't have the same problem, which means we're not gonna get a lot of attention over those years. It's another reason to control some of this.
If you're talking about taking monies away from CVB, though, are they aware that we're having these conversations?
No.
You're not.
Mm-mm.
And
But
also
it's not the-
going to gradually.
Sure, no, I
Yeah.
get that piece as well, yeah, but you're not ready to ramp up right on day one.
Right, right. Although I don't think it's the first time they've dealt with kind of a parting of such. Folly Beach did the same thing, just on a lesser scale.
Stephanie, just so that everybody-
As much money to them as we are?
I don't think so. But CVB's approach is that it doesn't matter what municipality, the amount that they give the same coverage to all the coastal communities, not reflective of how much money you give them.
Just so our council and probably any other municipal council, the 30% is discretionary on the part of the council, and the selection of CVB is discretionary on the part of a council.
Correct.
There's no contractual obligations that we have with anybody with,
That's right.
okay, just to make sure, so we could just, do you know where the 30%, has this been something that goes back in history? Have we always been giving them 30%?
As far as I know, we've always given it to the CVB. I don't know.
No, the 30% though.
That's what I'm saying, CVB,
That
30%,
CVB.
yes.
I think some of that also lends itself to, we were a much smaller scale than we have been, we've kind of evolved over the last 10 years. And so I think it would have made sense in the earlier days to give it to an entity like the CVB who's done great work in Charleston rather than like at the Chamber of Commerce of Charleston. So it probably was just an easy avenue for those dollars to go as far as they could.
But if you go back to that slide where you had the 25K, 5%, 30%, so that 30% of the remaining balance, is that 30% a mandated amount that's allocated to the tourism program?
Yes.
And we've chosen to give all of ours to
That's
that
right.
program.
That's right.
That was kind of the question you were asking, right? The 30% is.
Thank you for the clarifying.
By law.
So the 30% is
yes.
by law. We've
Right.
decided to give it to the CVB.
That's
Okay,
right.
that does, yeah.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, we have to give 30% to,
To someone. That's
Something
right.
related to tourism.
I'm not trying to mitigate the importance of this, but this is not unlike Brian's comments about the public works. It's really, we've got to the size where we want to kind of be in control of our own destiny here.
That's right.
You know, and this is another one that says that we think we have an opportunity to be better at promoting our island than somebody else
Exactly.
for that amount of money.
Exactly. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Get back to where, I actually don't think that's next, is it? We got a couple more bullet points before we get to that slide.
Yeah, I think I went
Yeah.
more.
Okay, thank
and
you.
just so the council knows, at some point, Stephanie and I will continue to talk about this. I have to renew contact with the folks at the CVB and talk to them about this. I mean, we don't want to blindside them, number one. We don't want to, have an adverse effect on their budget. We don't want to do anything, detrimental to that. But this is really pretty early in the game to say, hi, we're new in town, and oh, by the way.
Right now, they are focused on what Dan said.
Oh,
The impact
sure.
of the virus on hospitality in Charleston. So,
And rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
Chickens would do
All right, next on the agenda is just talk about COVID-19. This is just going to be really just a quick, brief discussion. You all have the emergency ordinance in your book. You had your very first council meeting after you were sworn in to extend the current emergency order that's in place. This will be placed on the February 2nd agenda to consider extending as is, or if you want to make any modifications to it. It is set to sunset on February 3rd, so we will take this up on the 2nd. You all know, of course, if you watch the news, this in record time with regards to having 2 vaccines on the market. It's my understanding, and Dr. Parker, I'm sure you can comment better on this than I can, that normally it takes years to get to the point where we're at. So we have 2 and possibly more down the pipe. Stephanie, the communications department, has done a great job. As we receive information from DHEC, we were pushing this out through our e-blast. Just trying to keep the community informed on where they can go get the vaccine, or any links or any data information. We have a great page on our website that's titled COVID-19, so we try to drive people to that resource. I'm on a bi-weekly call with the Charleston County Emergency Management Division. They have first responders, municipalities, county, other agencies, school districts, fire departments, just an array of agencies that's on that call. Pardon me? Medical. DHEC, they have an array of people on this call bi-weekly just to give updates and to allow municipalities and counties to go around and give their own updates. I'm now on I've gotten myself on a list where I now get some weekly or daily, however they like to send out the information just with regards to COVID. So I went back and I tried to just give just a very brief information with regards to COVID characteristics or information from March 4th through January 17th of this year. For Charleston County only, there was 29,418 total cases reported. Then they break it down between confirmed and probable. The confirmed was 25,266, and the rest makes up was probable. They're guessing it was probably COVID, but they never was able to confirm that. Our overall rate for Charleston County is 7,151 reported COVID cases per 100,000 population, and I meant to go check that population. They are showing that the average age is 39, and they were kind of listing in terms of the 25.4% right now that they're reporting of reported COVID cases. It's between the age of 21 and 30. I was able to get for the 29455, which is our zip code, of course. We share it though with Seabrook and Johns Island, so unfortunately I cannot drill it down to just Kiowa, but for the 29455, we had 1,663 reported cases since March 4th. So out of that 29,000, just over 1,600 came from the 29455. Statewide, we're at just under 400,000 cases at 394,318. I was looking at the information for the hospital. Hospitals required to report are 89, but 87 actually have reported. They have in-bed or inpatient beds at 81.33% utilization. They have ICU beds at 79.72 utilization and ventilators at 37.74 utilization. The COVID patients hospitalization out of that number is 25.67% are COVID patients. In the ICU, for COVID patients, they have 19.74%, and for ventilations, they have 12.87% are COVID out of those numbers that I've just provided you all. So I think, with all this information said, and actually in the last reported information that I received, it appears that while the numbers, of course, are still high in Charleston County, the numbers have dropped some with regards to those reported, but we did see a spike after 4th of July for family gatherings, of course, after Thanksgiving for family gatherings, and then, of course, for the last Christmas and New Year's, we're going to see a spike again, or that we have because of that. So those are, that's just some information that I was able to pull, and we will continue to, and I'm going to share this information as I get it with Stephanie and her team so that we might be able to, some information is just for them reporting to government agencies. It may not be for public, but whatever we can provide for public, we will make sure we have that information made available. Is there any information with regards to COVID that you guys have for myself or staff?
I have a question.
Or a comment?
I have a question, which is, have y'all and the staff given any consideration to offering some sort of centralized mass vaccinations to our population, sort of like when they did antibody testing on the
I reached out to MUSC once the vaccine was available to try to see if we can partner with them again. Because it's such a fluid situation, and I think initially was utter chaos, they did not commit. I bugged them for probably 2 weeks straight on that, and the last thing that they did was basically provide me the same information I received from DHEC to say, this is going to be the process, this is where people can sign up, this is where they can go. We were talking about trying to, it's a back to business program that they started, and that's basically how they came here. They went to the resort and they went through, and some other businesses. So we're trying to focus it that way. So to answer your question, I have been in communication with them. I know the mayor and mayor pro tem has talked with Mr. Roger Warren with regards to if we can bring them here, if we can utilize the conference center. It's my understanding that he is amenable to that idea. It's just a matter of us trying to get that here. So we're trying. If you all know of anyone in your profession, if you know, please, we can coordinate a call, or you can reach out to them, and I would love to try to have that done here.
All my contacts are in Greenville, so that doesn't help. But from an efficiency standpoint, you could certainly sell it in USC that way, because you could fill their calendar with people 70 and older.
I did that. I definitely did, and they realized, that this population is at obviously the high risk, and this is 70. So, I even said that for this part of the island, Kiowa, Seabrook, and Johns Island even, and we can operate as a centralized location. So I have reached out to them, and I'll still continue to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just to that end, as we're talking, they sent out staff to the nursing homes and provided vaccination to the nursing homes. Maybe that's a tack that we need to find out what department, what unit down at MUSC did that, did select Bishop Gadsden, how they did that, how they provided the cold storage, how they got to Bishop Gadsden, how they set it up. And maybe look at it, maybe, I'm not sure who you're talking to, but maybe that's an avenue, because I'm not sure what the population of, say, Bishop Gadsden would be, but I would think that we would have every bit as many residents in that age group here, between us and Seabrook and Wadmalaw, than they would have in a nursing home, 70 and older. And, because it's the cold storage, I would think, is the issue. But somehow they must have figured out how to do that to get.
I didn't come across as being the storage. It was more of the fact that, of course, I was talking with them when the governor made the announcement. So it was still very fluid. They didn't have the setup that they're doing now. They're doing it at Citadel. I understand they're going to be doing half of the time or half of the day is going to be the test and the other half vaccine. So now I think that it's more of they just didn't know how they were going to get it set up. So now I'm going to, as I said, continue to reach out. But I will definitely reach out again to them.
I know that, but I mean, I'm saying at some point they sent staff out with sufficient vaccines to be able to handle a Bishop Gadsden.
Oh, right, yeah. I don't think it's the storage part, but I understand what you're saying.
They must have.
Particularly with the governor last week going to the Roper facility at the North Charleston. saying that the hospitals needed to look for those kinds of opportunities, maybe we would be a good opportunity for either MUSC or Roper to get, probably 3,000 people vaccinated in a day.
Sure. Yeah, well, DHEC have said that in our calls to say to try to partner. I'm still trying. It's not the MUSC, they're just right now, it's a team, it's the same team that, the only contact that I have that we worked with to do the antibodies. So once they were doing antibody tests, they didn't jump right and start doing, they had to work through their process. So I think it's just a matter of them trying to understand and work through the process, and maybe they're tied up with the Coliseum and other locations, but they are aware. They're, and I've messaged them I've talked with them actually several times, so I'm hoping that we can get them to come out here. They realize that this is an at-risk population. They also realize that they can roll it into their Back to Business program. So it's just a matter, I think, of them. And when they did this for the antibodies, what they actually had to do was, a lot of you guys may have went ahead and got tested. So this group, it's that pulls us together at MUSC, they're working with other staff members that are not scheduled to do something. So we did it for 2 days, 3 days. So they had to then get nurses or other people that weren't scheduled to do certain things. So it was a lot of time for them to pull it together. So I'm confident that they want to do it. It's just a matter of logistics and them pulling together.
And right now, they're having a great shortage of people, and they're looking for volunteers in every,
And, yeah.
I could go and volunteer to help them with something, even though I have no medical experience.
That is true. They have a shortage because of people as well coming down with it. So I just think it's just, for them right now, they're just overwhelmed with, everyone wants them to come to their community. Believe me, on these calls, they're saying, we want you to come to my community, and they're just like, we're trying.
If anyone can do it, Stephanie can.
No, I don't know about that, but we're going to keep trying. But those are all great ideas. One thing that as we're talking, and we'll reach out, is that we haven't reached out to Roper, so that might be an avenue that we can try, as well as reach out to Roper and see if this is something that they're willing to partner with us on.
Maybe you have to contact the governor's office, tell them you can get this population of people done.
Yep. Any other questions with regards to COVID?
So just in terms of that, so there were 72 violations, and we really issued 4 tickets relative to violations of.
Are you talking about COVID, or are you just talking about?
We moved out of COVID.
We're still on COVID.
I'm still on COVID. I'm looking at that slide. And
These slides do not reflect our emergency ordinance.
These tickets are only issued from after hours code enforcement.
Right.
All of numbers is only after hours. This does not reflect daytime staff or use patrol.
We have, I had, Jan, what was our emergency ordinance?
There's one item on the tickets for emergency ordinance, and then there's, I think there's one.
Under tickets issued?
One's one down.
Oh, emergency ordinance.
And
4.
that's just strictly the evening guys, that they had caught people renting when they shouldn't have been renting, that type of thing.
Go ahead.
In addition to the evening folks, the daytime code enforcement, as far as
And the evening guys will go ahead and explain their violations, but the daytime code enforcement officers during the emergency ordinance, they issued 164 citations. And the breakdown of that is renting with no license, with no rental license.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jan, I'm still on COVID. I'm thinking.
That is COVID. She's giving-
Oh, that is COVID.
That was during the
ordinance.
emergency ordinance.
It's for COVID.
Oh, okay.
And
so-
this went from March 25th to May 15th.
So 100 and what?
The 164 citations.
So 164.
You're not gonna find this on this slide.
You're
No,
not going
no,
to find
I know,
it on this
164 and
slide.
72
Yeah.
though. So that's
This-
the total violations that we have.
That was issued by our daytime
Understood.
officers. Yeah.
Okay.
Renting with no rental license was 40 of those. Did not follow the emergency ordinance and continued to rent even after the emergency ordinance was placed
was gonna be 56. And then failure to add a rental business license number on their advertisement, according to our short-term rental ordinance, was 74. So that's the breakdown of what the daytime guys issued as far as citations during the emergency ordinance, and all that was found during that time. Any questions? Okay.
Okay.
Let Saz tell you.
We're gonna go ahead and turn over to the next discussion, which is short-term rental.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Sosnowski. I represent Barrier Island Ocean Rescue with Mr. Robert Edgerton as well. We are the contractor providing the service for short-term rental code enforcement as well as beach patrol. So the numbers behind me, I didn't realize we were only going to have this one slide. The numbers behind me are only representing what after-hours code enforcement officers issued in terms of warnings and tickets written. We do work fairly seamlessly with the daytime staff as well to say, hey, we checked this rental license. You need to go back and issue the ticket to the rental agency during the day because they're obviously not open. We're only here from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. Beach Patrol is here midsummer 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So we're staffed 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., but we only have the responsibility for code enforcement from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. And to explain these numbers as briefly as possible, because I did this for the existing council back in October when they re-upped the next year of our contract, they're pretty confusing because it's not just short-term rental violations is what we've been doing at night. So short-term rental violations, you can see out of the total activity, there's a lot. And we record these violations in our platform CitizenServe, and all of these are communicated with the help of Ms. Jan Fox to the rental agency, property manager, whoever the authorized agent may be. So you see a lot of warnings and not too many tickets. So we had a whole year of an educational phase trying to get everybody to understand what this new ordinance was and how they need to get their guests to comply. Since January 4th, I believe the first Monday in January, we sent a letter to all the rental agencies saying that educational period is now over and tickets shall be issued at the discretion of the officer. So you should see that number rise. However, our goal, as dictated by prior councils, has always been compliance rather than revenue from citations or anything like that. So as long as they'll comply with a warning, then we're not going to write a ticket. And that holds true for everything that we do. So you'll see a lot of warnings. And when you look at the emergency COVID ordinance warnings, the 74 warnings, almost all of those are mask violations at Freshfields or the general store. So we were asked to patrol those areas looking for people who are not wearing their masks, employees, visitors, whoever it might be. So we'll warn them to please put their mask on. We go back 2 hours later, their mask is now off, then we'll write a ticket for that. But usually one warning is all it takes per day. You know, the next day may be another warning. So for short-term rental violations, the short-term rental ordinance should be in your packet. Those are things like leaving your bikes out in your driveway, leaving trash cans out where they're visible, towels and articles of clothing left over balconies. These things are also KICA violations. However, if you're a short-term rental, the town has now brought that into its own jurisdiction with this ordinance so that it has some more teeth, so that we can police these guests. The next number under that, you see non-short-term rental violations. Those are property owners. Those are people who do not have a short-term rental permit. We don't know when we're driving around looking for these things, so we'll record that and look them up once we're done for our shift in the evening. And that way, that's how these numbers get captured. Those violations, there is a town ordinance that captures property owners as well. It's called Ordinance 8-119. It may or may not be in your book. It's been on the books for a very long time. However, KICA is the one that takes the principal role in enforcing those. So our relationship with KICA at night has grown. We call each other for what we need to call each other for the longer we work together. And Jan does an excellent job communicating with livability and security during the day to follow up on these complaints. Abandoned bikes, very self-explanatory. Cars parked on grass and streets. That number is not captured for the non-short-term rental violations. We report every car we see parked after hours to KICA because that is something that they write tickets for. They own the roads on the island. However, if it is a short-term rental and there's a car parked where it shouldn't be, that also is captured in that short-term rental violation number. Does that make sense? All right. Disturbing the peace, that is our noise ordinance. Lots of warnings for that. Usually people will comply with a warning. If they turn the music back on before we leave, we're going to write you a ticket. That's usually how that goes. Somebody says, yes, yes, we'll turn it down. And then before you get back to the truck, they cranked it back up. Glass on the beach, that rule holds day and night. Contractors without permits, this is something we didn't realize we would find so much of. But it's actually really easy to find a marked trailer or some, lumber left in a driveway after hours when no one's home. So we'll record that, look it up in Citizen Serve, see if they have an active permit, and then Jan will follow up with the daytime staff to pursue those. Trailers and dumpsters, again, a KICA violation, but we're recording those and sharing them with them. Leash law, again, that holds day or night during the high season. Public assists, this could be anything from somebody who, for example, I stopped and helped a gentleman whose bike seat had broken off mid-ride. So put his bike in the back of the truck and took him back to his unit. Or things like lost dogs, things like that. Fire and fireworks is self-explanatory. Boats and driveways is a short-term rental violation, but also a KICA covenant, so that's also something we report back to them. Working after hours is entirely KICA, but due to some of the issues they had staffing patrols with COVID, and I should mention, as a result of these numbers, Tony Elder shared that he got his budget increased to add 2 more patrol officers for the community association as well at night. So boat and driveway, working after hours, emergency, that's a mask ordinance. Trespassing is self-explanatory. That, for example, was 5 gentlemen who decided to help themselves to the old inn site by going through the gate and just hanging out in there drinking beer. So that was reported to resort security, and we passed that back and forth as necessary, as it's their property. Underage drinking, self-explanatory. Vehicles on the beach. People see a beach access that's ungated because our beach accesses are not gated because we use them as public access points, and they'll drive a Ford Taurus on the beach sometimes, which is very exciting. Alligator calls. So we had a lot of activity with alligators this year. All of these were reported to the town's wildlife department. Our staff, several of our staff, not all of our staff, are trained in how to manage alligators, remove them from where they are, and put them back where they need to go. Public nudity is what it is. Turtles, lights on the beach, several calls at night. This is, so we do have a hotline number. People will call and say, there's a light that's too bright on the beach. I can see this from my house, whatever it might be. We'll go check it out and warn as necessary. Narcotics possessions, those are all related to marijuana. So you go to a noise complaint, there's marijuana. We handle that with the assistance of the sheriff's department, who is here on the island. We won't handle that by ourselves, but they prefer for us to write the summons because we have more leeway with how we do that, and we do have an ordinance for it, so we're able to do that.
Do they confiscate the marijuana?
Do they? We have an evidence locker here. If we write the summons, we keep it here with a chain of custody, so that when we have our court, our municipal court, we have the evidence here.
And then what?
And then it's destroyed after court.
You burn it in little tiny increments?
Flushed is the easiest way to do that.
Okay, so,
Yes.
So the chain of custody is well documented?
It's probably not as well as the sheriff's department because they have everything behind cages. But yes, the officer who confiscates brings it immediately up here to the evidence locker, records it, informs us, logs that. We tell Brian that it's in there as public works manager, and then it stays there and does not move until court.
Right. Then after court, it's disposed of. Is there
Yes.
witnesses and everything that it's?
Yes, there's always more than one of us there.
Okay, I just want to make sure that there's nothing here.
No, sir.
Okey doke.
Yes, we did have Captain Martin's help with that discussion.
Okay.
And then rental checks is what we did during the emergency ordinance when no one was allowed to rent. If someone called and said, hey, I think this house is renting illegally, we would go at night because during the day there'd be no one home to answer the door. So we'd go around dinner time and see who was there and ask for rental agreements and such things like that. And I don't believe we have a slide for it, but if you'd like an introduction to what we do as Beach Patrol as well. So this, as we said, this represents only the 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. activity. We have several more citations issued. We also have separate statistics that we keep for Beach Patrol for that activity as representatives of the town. Yes, sir.
If one of your code enforcement guys shows up at a house
No.
Code enforcement officer.
They look like code
I
enforcement
thought
officers.
yours, it looks fine, but.
Yes. No, we have badged, we have IDs. They're wearing uniforms with the town logo on them. So all of our guys are
Readily recognizable as.
very easily. All of our trucks are marked with town insignia.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I think it's helpful to know this emphasis on code enforcement came after our work on the short-term rental
Right.
ordinance. And when we went out to property owners, one of their biggest complaints was code enforcement was not taking place. So some people were unhappy with the ordinance, but they were also more complaints about code enforcement. So we put together a code enforcement team during the day and also in the evening. There's a direct line people can call up, and if you call that number, somebody will come out. It's really working very well. But this is the result of all the work that's been doing this year.
That number you can call, is that functional at 2 in the morning, or is it only till 1?
All night, right?
It's a Google Voice hotline.
Yeah.
So when there's no one, from our staffed hours from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., it'll forward immediately to whoever's holding the phone. We have a dedicated cell phone for this.
Okay.
And then after that, it will go to Ms. Tillerson as a Google Voice text. So it will come through as text, and we'll be able to handle it as fast as we can. That number also has a voicemail message that says, if this is an emergency, please hang up and dial 911. And you may also contact the Kika Main Gate, who then can dispatch either us if we're there or the deputies. Although deputies are not able to enforce town ordinances.
Very good, very good.
I'll be going through the control statistics.
You're doing that. Okay, thank you. Any other questions I can answer for you?
I will say, that even though the sheriff can't enforce noise control, I did call, drop a dime on some renters at 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
And just the presence of the sheriff driving up got their attention.
The presence of the sheriff helps us do our job all the time.
That's very good.
Yes. Because we look like code enforcement officers. We don't look like deputies. That's a big difference.
While you're there, could you just give a quick, brief description of what you all do as beach patrol, roles, responsibilities? Oh, you're gonna do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Um,
Why don't we,
oh, thank you, you're all set. I just wanted to wrap this up before we do a break, that's
Yeah.
okay. Short-term rental ordinance, just in general, you all have a copy of that right now. Throughout the year, we have found a couple things that we had to tweak. We have brought it back to council. We made some amendments to it. We're currently in the process of short-term rental licenses renewal. Right now, it appears that everything is going well. We have a Citizen Serve software, and we also did some modifications to that to try to capture some additional information on the owners. What we discovered was that if the property management company applied for the owner, we may not have had the owner's information. So when our ordinance states that both the owner and property management companies are equally liable. So what we're doing now is making sure that we capture the owner's information so that we can notify them as well of any concerns or violations. Do you all have any questions specifically about the ordinance? Yes.
Maybe this is about the ordinance, you can tell me. Do we have a way to capture people that rent their homes through VRBO,
Yes.
Airbnb, but maybe have not applied for a rental license?
Well, so what we do is, Jan, she is our short-term rental compliance clerk, so also that came out of amending the short-term rental ordinance, because we've always had a short-term rental ordinance. We end up moving Jan and promoting Jan to short-term rental compliance clerk.
So how we find them is we scrape the websites, and we have found, and a majority of them were found during the pandemic, because we were checking the sites to say, okay, these people are renting on Kiowa, but their calendars are open and there's reviews and everything. So when we do find one that we don't see a license number on, we get in there, we check to see if they have a license or if the resort has a license. And if one or the other are missing a license, then we contact them, send them a letter. If they don't respond by the date, then we do issue a citation.
Any other questions
Any other
specifically about
questions?
short-term rental ordinance? I think it's working great. You'd be amazed that during the emergency order, when we had moratorium on the rental, we were able to work really well with Kika
Oh.
with regards to their gate.
Yeah.
So if they saw because we have this a lot, where owners can now, can go in and call in their own guest pass or go online, we saw that a lot. And so Kika would contact Jan or vice versa
Yeah.
somehow and say, they might be renting. So we had a really good relationship. That's just something during the emergency order. We don't do that now, but
Yeah, we
during
worked
the-
really well with them. If we felt someone was renting and they were still not paying attention to the emergency ordinance, we would flag their property and Kika would stop them from entering the island until we found out what was going on. But we had a great relationship with them, so they really helped us out a lot.
Wow, you guys in the prior council went through a lot to get that through, but I applaud it. I mean, I think it's really important to be done, so
Well, thank you.
good
Yeah,
efforts.
thank you.
And then just to wrap up, and we're all set. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
I know there was questions, or at least put on here, you all have a copy of the plastic ordinance and shovel ordinance. Those are two other ordinances that we adopted last year. If you have any questions on those, Jim is here, who was kind of instrumental in helping the environmental committee. Jim was chair of, and is chair of, thought it was a good idea, and we agreed to look at plastic ordinance, and so we have one on the books, and if you have any questions, I asked Jim, last week, I believe, if there's any issues or concerns, and not that he knows of. When we first passed it, I think we may have had just about a week or two, we worked with our code enforcement to just, let people know that it's on the books, help them understand what's required of them, and give them a timeline to be able to, especially the businesses that have the to-go plastic bags, give them time to the containers, give them time to slowly rotate out. But I think because this ultimately was in the city of Charleston, and then the county ended up doing some things, and then so I think it was just a natural move that people in the greater Charleston area was just getting accustomed and used to the fact that a lot of jurisdictions were putting in some sort of ban on plastic. So it appears that ours is working well. I'm not sure if we get a lot on the beach because, of course, part of it was that people will, carry all their stuff possibly in a plastic bag. I don't know if you are seeing a lot of that on the beach or not.
Most of the plastic that we've seen historically has been around the sanctuary and the park, the county park, and the beach club where they were actually serving and people carried down to the beach and stuff. And those entities are policing themselves. There's not much that we've seen with plastics.
You don't see plastic bags in the dunes anymore. I mean, this has worked, I think,
Yes.
extraordinarily well.
Oh, good.
Stores have also eliminated
We have to.
plastic bags.
That's all right.
They work with the stores also, Harris Teeter and the other
Oh.
businesses to make sure they don't have plastic bags.
Yeah, right. So it seems like it's worked well and successful. If you have any specific questions on that, please feel free to ask. And then last is the metal shovel. I know Stephanie, and a lot of this stuff, everything that we do, her team has done a great job in communicating information out, or we've done some fun things with the metal shovel ordinance. We had some little kids' pails, so we did some fun things to try to roll that out. On the beach, how do you handle, I know there might still be a few people that come with their big shovel, and they're trying to dig to the bottom of the earth, but how do you handle that?
So, in general, people come to the beach with the intention of building a sandcastle or something. So, again, I think that the town was brilliant to regulate the size of the shovel, not the size of the hole. So we're not out there with a tape measure trying to figure out which hole is too deep or too wide. That's a stroke of genius. And so it makes our job easy to enforce. If you got a little shovel, theoretically you can dig a little hole. So when we go out there, we usually educate people if they're digging holes that are excessively large below the mean high water mark. So if the tide's not going to come up and cover it over, we do pay attention to it, and we let them know and remind them to fill in holes. And then enforcing the shovels, if it's a commercial grade shovel, automatically it's not allowed. So we can easily kick those off the beach. The issues, it's going to be hard to completely eliminate holes on the beach altogether. You've got people that are out there digging holes, and then they get caught by a most of the holes, even when they are large, even when they're left out there, get covered by the tide. But our guys do pay attention, especially during turtle season, to the holes that are dug above the high water mark. And the strategy there is making contact with the people while they're digging the holes to remind them and educate them about not leaving the holes behind, so that it's not an issue for anybody.
Very good, great.
So, just some background for me, because I'm not familiar with how the history of this.
Sure.
But the metal shovels were designed to be eliminated / regulated predominantly because of the turtles, or just because of the fact that they need deep, big holes?
Was that yes to both?
Yeah, wait, it's both, right?
Okay.
It's you know, turtles are probably the primary reason, but then also, right, it's a public safety risk to our folks who are driving on the beach if you've got a giant hole out there.
Okay.
Truck to drive into. But yeah, turtles were the primary reason, that this, you know, kind of all came up.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. That's all for my section.
Very, very good. Good stuff. Why don't we, 5 till 10 after? Take a break to about 10 after?
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Stephanie, you know, I think the whole compliance issue around,
And we're still live.
I think it's so much fun.
Yeah.
I really do. One of the major complaints I got from real estate people when we first talked about short-term rental was really compliance.
Needed to do what, Dan?
Compliance.
Oh.
We are much better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the real estate market's been terrific.
Right. I'm gonna go use the restroom. We are still live, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Also, I just realized, I misunderstood what they were saying when I was up here about the numbers.
Yeah.
So, this is just the top 10.
Yeah.
I cut that off. There's numbers underneath here that add up to this number.
Okay, that's.
I was just, I don't know, I got confused on what they were
Yeah.
asking.
Mhm.
That's why I was just trying to show them the
Yeah.
top pages, but here, on the numbers, and I didn't realize that's what they were saying, but there's, I just cut the tonnage off.
Yeah.
So this is the total, it just keeps going.
Yeah, keep
It's
going
just
and
like
going.
Order of importance,
Yeah.
order of, you know.
Yeah, it goes.
Yeah, there's more under there,
Yeah.
I just didn't have
Yeah.
space to fit it.
And it went,
Sorry.
yeah, no, yeah.
I don't know, I got,
I know.
you know, what they were asking,
Yeah.
so, that's what.
I know. Okay.
I was like, wait, because some of this.
Yeah, I don't know.
The balance rate is related to the unique page view, it's just, it's really complicated, so I have to. It's still really complicated, you know, like, so it just takes a little bit of explanation, it's hard to like just work that out.
Yeah.
But that's why I was confused, I was like, what are they asking?
Yeah.
And I didn't know how detailed I needed to get there, so that, I just wanted to let you know, in case
Okay.
they ask.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
I
is
told the mayor,
important.
I was
Okay.
like, I'm sorry I misunderstood, but there's more numbers under there, just
Mhm.
not being reflected on the screen.
Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I have it.
Okay, I'm gonna go, oh, I'm gonna use the restroom, I have to go use the restroom. Oh, it's 3:00 already. Geez, we're gonna have to really fly through the other two stuff.
let's talk metrics.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I misunderstood what was being asked. So like I had cut off the image. There's more of the pages underneath here. That's where the numbers keep going down.
Okay.
But in order to fit it on the slide, I had to cut it off at
Okay.
the top tip. So this number keeps
So in reality, this number represents
all of
the
the
totality.
the total pages.
Yeah, I couldn't see
I'm
how.
so
Because
sorry.
you cannot get to any of these
No,
things without accessing the website first.
No, exactly. And so I'm sorry, I didn't clarify that. I misunderstood what was
Okay.
being asked.
Now, what's a bounce back?
Okay, so
Now, just remember, I'm 68 years old, so you have to talk in.
I know, and so the bounce rate is an average of these unique page views. Okay, so page views is total. And then this takes an average of people and that go to one page and maybe they didn't stay there, so they count it as like an error, right? And the bounce rate would be the difference between the two.
Okay.
And the exit rate, I have to look up where that, let me look up where that is. It's very complicated. And also takes into, the bounce rate also takes into account this, at this industry standard. That's what
Okay.
you don't want to have.
You want it to be a big number or a little number?
You want it to be a littler number.
Okay.
So, I'm so sorry, I missed this. Sorry.
Are we still alive? Okay.
So, this might be easier. It's calculating some of this is a single page, like I said, and does nothing on that page before leaving.
Okay.
So, it takes into account these two that are in relation to each other.
Now, when it looks at unique viewers, is that just looking at
Is it
by
unique
ISP?
page views? These are not viewers.
Okay.
So this is just the traffic that hits the site. Viewer, like to track it back to IP addresses and things of that nature, this is more the number we're
Okay.
looking here.
All right.
But of course, that also doesn't take into account that two people might use the same computer.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
So there's some variation in that, that is kind of deceiving.
Now, here's a basic question.
Sure.
My wife and I each have a separate computer, but we're coming out of the same Wi-Fi. Does that look like we're at the same ISP address then?
I don't know. What's the IP address?
Yeah.
You have one IP address.
I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm asking. I just we both go through. We just go through the same Wi-Fi
But
network.
then when she went to buy.
Yeah.
So it's her
Then it
computer.
would-
It's my computer.
No, it would have its own IP.
It has its own separate.
Yeah,
One of those 22 decimal points.
right.
Okay, identifies this
Yeah.
colleague and this
You
is
know,
not.
That's
it's
right.
not,
Okay.
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
everywhere. It's not, you know,
Thank
it's
you.
everywhere in real estate
Yeah.
markets are like that.
Yeah. Well, but it's not in Chicago, and it's not in Cleveland, and it's not in,
Yeah, it's not, so it's not literally everywhere, but in many, many places.
One of the things I noticed on this is in one place, not in the calendars, but if you go under committees, on Ways and Means, it still lists the Tuesday of the fourth week of 2 o'clock as the time. It's,
I'll look at it in terms of the shows, the community side of the
Oh.
website, but that's probably why I can get that to switch out.
it's just one of, I just noticed.
Well, I went to North Charleston to get my COVID PCR test, and I felt like she was taking a brain biopsy.
I've never
documentation you got.
Another question.
You can't do that to you.
This person that we may or may not hire.
Yes, sir.
When you said they take care of this building, you meant outside landscaping, side, they cut grass and do all that.
I never showed you a picture.
Just the
Eventually,
leasing of the area.
well, eventually, yes, I think that the total maintenance
Here, for
of this
example,
facility, I mean, it's
Stay in.
a couple things.
It's located on a.
It's not a whole lot. That some, I mean, the greenery has 3 guys that come here once a week. So that's plenty of work for somebody to do, to have, you know, full-time work, doing stuff on the facility every day. Right, so we've got some.
Yeah, it's a brutal day. The schedule goes like this. Get up at 6 a.m.
But then also.
Watch the sunrise with this spectacular.
Motors.
And go for it.
You can do this in place for an hour. I'm not doing it just because it's fun.
Exactly what it is. Being the daughter of.
Yeah, so a lot of opportunity there.
Governance.
But no, and then
There's
thinking,
just no one
right, so we're doing it here.
My best friend, his wife,
Well,
his mother, her mother was the governor.
Where's what? At 3 o'clock.
This one, Tilbury,
But in the 20s,
transitions into.
the ladies in the north
But more of this now, sure. it's
married
probably
into another family that was related to the
But still,
baseball.
at some point,
The Mortons.
at some point, there's enough of those buildings to are full or full and a half or something to where, because anytime you contract with somebody, it's gonna cost you more than what you could work. Now, if you can't keep that person busy all the time, then it's.
Are you guys gonna stay for the wine?
You're paying for it,
I know about it, John.
you've got full time.
Like, how do you say no to
Alright.
wine?
Where's Tyga? Call me Tyga.
Well, absolutely, and that's what I was getting at too, you know, saying we could increase the services.
I have, but, I did, but then I canceled, so it was canceled.
Cost
And
increase.
then we brought it back and we're just gonna do it here.
Servicing.
Remember we brought it in the land?
Twice a week, 4 times a week.
I was like, it's not, and then someone said we're gonna change it, and then I just said, December, and then we're gonna do this meeting tonight.
Can't live without
And
that.
that's just in the wine.
Twice a year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
he left it.
Spring or fall, just like the HVAC.
But yeah, so it's gonna be here, and it's just gonna be just such a small.
We can hire, you know,
On a
every
spot basis.
right, and as needed, company.
Yeah, we need to suggest to catch around next time, do like little Kevin's salad.
That's how we do it.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's real, you know, that's like, you do the whole thing.
I know she brought me a whole nother one, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do one. It's just the crunchy, just something, the crunchy they do. It's your crunchy. Yeah,
Something's about to put your hands.
yeah, I thought, it
Waiting on you.
basically is. The mayor come back. Where did he go?
Who's that?
The mayor.
Oh, really left.
He's gone in the dark, so he's gone to Seabrook, he's moving there, and he hasn't been mentioned.
Don't start that rumor, cause we're live stream still. So. Oh, cause then you know that'll get out.
So you need to come up with this flag, to go social media, I'll make it know.
You know, it'd be great if you can, in live stream, you can do like a break, and then a little thing goes, they're on break, and you come back, and you go off break. That'll be useful. You can go right to YouTube.
Commercial break.
No, like commercial break, yeah.
We could advertise.
We're talking about getting into the TV. Yeah, once we have,
I swear.
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Mary Ann.
No problem.
Officially called back to
Oh, we're back to order.
We're back. Are we on?
We're on.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am here to talk to you about several items, including public safety. And when I think about public safety, I think about improving the quality of life for our residents. It's really people, policies, and procedures. Through public safety, we provide interagency collaboration, law enforcement, fire officials, emergency medical services, the beach patrol, and CERT. We support the role of the deputies to patrol assigned areas, observe and investigate suspicious behavior, apprehend suspects, and prepare incident reports. We have a very good public safety committee. Members from KICA, the resort in Freshfields, participate in our monthly meetings, as well as several property owners. And the property owners are very impressive in that we have people with FEMA experience, medical emergency services, police background, and the fire commissioner. Agencies that are involved with public safety are the fire company, the Charleston Sheriffs, the medical emergency services, and beach patrol. The mayor had asked what's our goal for this year, and one of them is to continue to support the quality of life for all property owners and visitors through our enforcement work. Another major goal that I'm going to talk about for a minute is to implement our bike patrol program for Kiowa. This work started last year, but believe it or not, when we went to order the bicycles, Stephanie was told they were out of all bicycles for about 6 or 7 months, right? They were sold out because of the COVID. Why are we going to put in a bike patrol? Well, bike patrols are really less threatening to people. Public is much more receptive to it. They get to know the sheriffs or the deputies. You have absolutely more citizen contact. There's patrolman anonymity. We have better property access. Costs are reasonable. And of course, there's no carbon footprint with the bikes. To talk about some of the areas they'll be involved in, in order to do this, there's a training program that all of our sheriffs have to go, our deputies have to go through. We're going to start out with 2 people, and they will be trained by the Aeronautical Division of Charleston County. And we're waiting right now to get appropriate space in that training for those 2 people. We hope to implement the bike patrol by the start of the high season, so probably around April, I would think. And these will be 2 of our regular deputies. It's not in addition to the force. It's 2 of our regular deputies that will be trained, and they will be patrolling the areas around Kiowa that are sometimes hard to go to, especially with a car. Should be like recreational areas, bike paths, etc. Our bike paths are of particular concern this year because they're getting more use than they were actually planned for. And I know KICA is looking at them to see if there's some kind of structural changes that have to be made. But I'm very concerned about the amount of traffic because they are the most used public resource. That and the beach are the 2 areas that are really utilized a lot by visitors and residents. And right now, we don't have any enforcement on the beach, on the bike paths. People can go as fast as they want. We have single people, families pulling carts with babies in them. There are a lot of opportunities for accidents, and there have been some this year where people have been injured. That's another thing. If we have our bike patrol in place and there's any kind of an accident, they can assist a person riding a bike. Excuse me.
Mary Ann, are they EMT trained? The
Pardon?
deputies, what's their training, medical training?
They have to be specially trained to ride the bikes.
I'm sorry, are they EMT trained?
EMT, yes, they are.
So all the deputies are,
Yeah, they're able
No.
to
EMT or just BLS?
EMT.
I don't think they're EMT trained, but they are trained for, I don't think they're EMT trained, but they do have some level of training to be able to assist.
First aid, right.
Yeah, but I don't think they're EMT
Yeah,
trained.
that's basic life, that's BLS.
Yeah, basic life,
They
yeah.
can't start an IV, for example.
Right.
No.
They're not,
Okay.
that's EMT, yeah, so it's basic
Everyone
life.
has a different definition, but that's helpful. Yeah. So, anyhow, we're looking forward to this. The officers are very, very excited about it. It's something that does not exist in Charleston County yet. I was a little bit surprised to hear that. But I think there'll be a lot of efficiencies that we can achieve, and it also give our residents a feeling of security. Now that we have our regular deputies on 24/7, our regular ones are on during the day shift, and then we have other sheriffs, other deputies on for the evening and overnight. The other area I wanted to talk about today was bike patrol. Beach patrol. Now, we have the bikes, the most frequently used area, the bike trails. The beach is the other most frequently used by all families and guests. And very often we're thinking about the beach patrol being just lifeguards, people who are trained to look out in the ocean and see if anybody needs to be rescued. But we're very fortunate on Kiowee. We have a beach patrol that is much more involved in that. Okay. Our public safety goal for the beach patrol is to achieve DHEC certification this year. And since we have Rob here, I'll just let him explain to you what that would mean, if you don't mind.
Sure. So our staff is there's a medical component to what we do, obviously, as lifeguards. And our agency holds several accreditations now through the United States Life Saving Association is one. And then to further our abilities, we've got people that are on our staff. Everyone is minimally certified to the emergency medical responder level, which is the minimum entry level certification for pre-hospital care. We're seeking DHEC certification, which essentially means that we're going to be interwoven into the pre-hospital response system through the 911 dispatch center and everything else. We'll be part of what the dispatch center calls a response package. There will be our resources that are automatically dispatched with the fire department or EMS for any calls that are in our area of response. So anything over the beach or the adjacent water immediately surrounding the island. So what goes along with that is we're going to have EMTs en route to at least 80% of our calls. So we have roughly 10 EMTs on staff right now, and we've got a couple of guys in EMT school as we speak. And so that's been our push, is to raise our minimal certification from the emergency medical responder level to the EMT level with the backing of DHEC and being under their umbrella of standards. So that's what we're pushing for. We've passed all of our inspections and our final inspections.
So you're going to be ALS certified?
So we won't be ALS certified. So in the continuum of care, it's the entry level is the emergency medical responder, and then you have the EMT basic, advanced EMTs, and then paramedics. So advanced EMTs and paramedics will both be your ALS designation, so advanced life support, which will be your IVs, your medications, your cardiac capabilities, and so we're going to be. The entry level is 40 hours of training, and then the next level, the EMT basic level, is about 200 hours of training. And so most of your fire departments here locally, St. John's Fire Department, James Island Fire Department, City of Charleston, everybody's trained to the DHEC basic life support first responder model. So we'll be on par with those other groups in the first responder role.
And our fire department, the chief has managed to get all of her members EMT trained. I believe it's like 98% right now. It was quite an accomplishment, but it's really very, very helpful to us. Thank you, Ron. So, and on the beach patrol, we do have, as he mentioned, 10 EMT trained. We have 1 paramedic and some nurses, 3 or 4 nurses. So it's quite a qualified force. And I say that because in the event that we had any emergencies on the island, this force would be able to help us in addition to other resources that are available. During the high season, Beach Patrol had 4 water rescues, 1 boat rescue, minor first aid of 365 jellyfish reactions, 152 rather, jellyfish, and 139 stingray bites. We have 0 drownings. There are enforcement activities of some of the things that Mike had already mentioned. We had 2,546 enforcement activities. And these cover all of the beach shovel, the glass on the beach, plastics, things like that. They also had 10 major events where rescue squad had to be called.
Okay. Mary, can I
Yes.
just add, oh, go ahead.
I just want to get some operational details about the bike patrol.
Sure.
How many hours a day? What are we going to have them just once a day during peak hours, or you're not going to put all the officers on bike, are you?
Oh, no, no, no. It's only going to be 2 out of the 4 that we have. The other 2 will be patrolling in the vehicles. And it'll be during the busiest times of the day. We haven't actually specified that, but they will be on the bike paths.
Comment on that?
Sure.
Yeah, so we're not gonna have a set time for them to do bike patrol.
Okay.
But what they're gonna do is we bought them bike racks. So throughout the day, they'll have the ability to park their car, jump off the bike, ride the trail or the beach, and then they'll pop back onto their car and drive. So it's not gonna be like, our permanent deputies are 7A to 7P. It's not gonna be like on a Tuesday, they're going from 7A to 3P. They basically will have their bikes with them, the 2 will have their bikes with them on their vehicle at all times, and then throughout the day, they'll jump on and off. Now, during the PGA, depending on how that looks, we're gonna probably see them on their bikes more, because we're gonna have more people out and about, and then of course we'll have the other 2 in their vehicles. So during that time, we'll probably see them more. During the holidays, Memorial, 4th of July, they may utilize the bikes more than driving.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's my question. They're not going to be starting from Freshfields and then driving all
No.
the way to Ocean Park.
No, no.
No, they may fall out, no.
Okay, great.
Mary, just.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mary.
A comment and a question. The comment, at some point, I know the bike paths are the associations, but at some point there's going to have to almost be a speed limit. I mean, some of the folks come down here that, that are really the bikers with the outfits and the bikes, they go at a heck of a speed.
I know.
And they're going to catch a kid in a 3-wheeler. So there's going to be a problem, especially if we're going to be patrolling that. But that's just a comment.
Oh.
Question, Rob, we have a contractual relationship with your company. Do you have a contract with any other entity, or is it just all, is your work all done here at Kiawah?
So we serve Kiawah and Seabrook.
Seabrook.
Seabrook contract is a seasonal contract, so from roughly Easter till Labor Day we serve them, and so these are all new too.
But your contract with us is
Year round.
year round.
Yes.
Okay. Is the seasonal contract with Seabrook new?
Probably 2017.
Oh, okay.
We've done this.
Okay. Okay. Well, Rob, that's just great. That DX, that's just wonderful. It's
Thank you.
nice,
We're excited about it.
a great accomplishment.
And I think just getting back to your, Mayor, your question about the speed limits, et cetera, that's another concern of ours because of these motorized bikes. Now, there hasn't been a decision, according to our ordinance, we can't, on the beach, we don't have any motorized vehicles of any kind. But the decision to allow motorized bikes on Kiowa is resting now with the KICA staff the board is looking at that. And I think what they found out when they first brought this subject up is that there's a lot of different opinions on whether we should allow these bikes. And that's under discussion right now. And mentioned also they're working on the bike paths. They're supposed to be doing some renovations to it. The issues that we see, and one of the reasons why I went for this bike patrol is because there's no speed limits on the bike path. You have families riding in the street. You have the buggy attachments for little babies on the back of bicycles, and too many people. An accident is bound to happen. And we really should be addressing this now, and that's one of the things I hope that the Bike Patrol will be able to do.
I think the bike patrol is a marvelous idea, don't get me wrong. And I know that
Oh,
KICA
yeah.
has committed into their budget to widening the bike paths by another 2 feet, bringing them from 8 feet to 10 feet. A lot.
That'll help a lot. That'll help a lot. Okay, so public safety is one of the issues that I handle. The next that I just got this year from the mayor is the Arts Council. And it's very exciting because I heard from Dan it's a lot of fun. Is that true? It's a ball.
And your events so far this year have been fabulous.
Right. We did have one meeting already with the Arts Council board. I wanted to be prepared for this meeting. They're evaluating in-person events 3 months in advance. They decided they wouldn't just cancel the whole season, the whole year. They wanted to do it 3 months at a time. So they meet regularly to discuss the status of COVID and what they think they can do. They have had some virtual success. On December 22nd, the Arts Council hosted their first virtual event, which was a holiday concert by Fred Moyer, who's evidently very popular, and he's been here before. They had 218 households registered for that event, which was a big deal. And the performance has actually been seen 300 times. So their attempt at virtual appearances really worked very well. They're still working on more virtual events, which will be released in February and March. They include the Small Glories, Quentin Baxter, who I've heard only successful, wonderful things about, and the Charleston Symphony Orchestra, which is another very popular one. For the 2021-22 season, they're planning on that, but have to reschedule most of the events. And a lot will happen a lot will be controlled by the pandemic. So we'll just have to wait and see. But this is just such a wonderful thing for the quality of life in Famwood, in Kiowa. Where am I? Famwood's where I lived for 28 years. Anyhow, I'm looking forward to working with the Arts Council. They're great, very, very interesting backgrounds of the selection of people. Okay. And last but not least is the Audit Committee. Now, I had no idea what I was going to do with the Audit Committee when the mayor said to me, I'd like you to handle the Audit Committee. Like everything else, though, on Kiowa, we have such wonderful volunteers and well-qualified people. And that's the impression I had from the meeting we just had last Monday. There are four members, and they are exceptionally qualified as far as their backgrounds go. Yes, Mayor?
Oh, no. Just,
Oh.
right. I'm sorry.
And the purpose of the audit committee is to provide oversight for the town's system of internal controls and risk management. It's supposed to make sure we're doing the right thing with our financial statements, compliance with legal and regulatory requirements and ethical standards, and also engage independent and performance analysis of the town's auditors. I understand from Dorota, who's always done an excellent job, that every 5 years, is it, we review our auditing company to make sure that they are the right ones for us. And we recently changed, I guess this is the 3rd year for our current company.
Yeah, we're going into a 3rd year, yes.
And one of the gentlemen on the audit committee mentioned that one of the partners at this company is now at a high level in,
He's involved in there is a governmental accounting standards board, and he's involved in it, so he knows things before they even published, as far as accounting rules.
so that's another benefit for us. I enjoyed the meeting very much because it was very informative, and I look forward to working with them as we go forward. I'm sure we're going to involve them also if we analyze our preparedness program for disaster relief.
Just a question. Do we change every 5 years, or we send it out for bid?
We need to bid, so not necessarily you change, but we
No.
bid out, and then the committee helps to review the proposals, and then
That's normally state standards for
That's it,
municipalities or even counties to relook at your auditors, rebid it out every 3 to 5 years.
And of course, we would also participate in periodic auditing of our emergency management plans. And I'm planning on doing that this year. The mayor has mentioned that to me. If you have anything you'd like to say, Mayor?
No, that's fine.
No? Okay. So there'll be more to come on that. I haven't really started on it yet. Are there any questions about auditing, Arts Council, or public safety?
Just a question, Stephanie. Do conflict of interest statements, are they adopted by municipal governments? Do council people sign conflict of interest to the senior staff?
Oh,
Yes.
the conflict, the form that we've created?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
staff signs that. Council can if they like, but it's just a requirement of all staff.
So it is a requirement of staff, conflict of interest?
That we do.
That you do?
Yes.
But councils, is that a practice, or is that just something that's discretionary on the part of the council itself?
Discretionary. The former mayor, he would sign it, but the other council members didn't, but he did, sent it in.
Isn't that what we did when we filed with the state ethics committee?
No, you're gonna talk about that.
That's different, but
We
it's
created an
similar.
internal, conflict of interest kind of form that we created, I guess now 4 years ago, that all the senior staff signs, or all the staff signs, and then it's forwarded on to the town attorney, and the town attorney holds on to it. So if the town attorney sees an issue with any conflict, he will then talk to that staff person. If it's just the normal stuff, he will just keep it. So I don't even see it. The mayor doesn't see it. We're only brought to our attention if he believes that there's something in there that we should know about. So that's what he's talking about.
Okay, because it seems to me that there was some form that I had to file with the state that basically said.
That is.
My brother-in-law doesn't have the asphalt.
You're talking
Right.
about the statement of economic interest, and
Yes.
that's required by elected officials, as well as Dorota and I have to complete it as well. And that's through the state.
I'm going to bring that up for discussion. I'd like to talk about that. I think that's important. You know, especially if we have one for the staff, you know, really it's something that we all ought to talk about and possibly sign.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Okay, we're caught up on time.
It's okay. It's
That's
on you, Dan.
Finance, subject close to all of our hearts. In my conversations with the mayor, he's asked me to do several things, but I'm going to highlight a couple of those today. And Dorota is going to talk even more about our budget process and our overall financial situation here at the town. One of the key things he's asked me to focus on for the next couple of years is the situation with our Johns Island roads. And he's asked me to actually join with John Taylor, who has been taking the lead on the roads for some time as our town planner. And he's really become an expert in terms of where we are, so I'm learning from him, but as a member of council, I'm also going to take a more active role in seeing that our ideas and our influence can be helpful in getting things improved. As all of you know, this community, as well as Seabrook and much of Johns Island, is served by two tiny single-lane highways, that is single lane in each direction, that provide us 100% of our access on and off this island, and the neighboring islands, Seabrook as well. If, in the case of those two roads, there is a traffic accident, a tree down, even sometimes on Mondays, a garbage truck that's just routinely picking up all the garbage along Main Road, or just increased traffic, things grind to a complete halt and to a stop. It's a dangerous situation for lots of reasons, including your health and so on. But more importantly, the organizations that we have here, our town and our survival and our guests, can't survive being dependent on those two single lane, as they were, highways. So we've got to work together, and our strength will be in our numbers, not only with ourselves, but with Seabrook and the people on Johns Island, to see what improvements can be done. Now, the good news is there are two proposed major improvements which can make a big difference over the next decade. The decade for us is terribly important. The first one you've all heard about and read about for a long time, that's I-526. I-526 extension is, interestingly, at the county level, a fully approved project. In spite of all the things you hear, it's an approved program. From the county's point of view, it's going to move forward. However, what we've got to realize as residents is it will be a decade, if it is successful, before that becomes a functional alternative for us. But we can't ignore it, and the county's not ignoring it. It's also true that many, many of the sort of roadblocks it may face in its development, many of which could change things, could put it in some danger. But from the county's perspective today, it's an approved project. It's going to move forward. So we've got to take that in mind. The second one, which has a more immediate impact on us, is one you're all familiar with. And that's what's called the Main Road Corridor Project. This is also approved and funded, interestingly. It's funded by the half-cent sales tax that the voters passed, and is supported by legislation at the county level that basically says this sales tax money must be used to improve the traffic and the capability to handle traffic on Main Road and Bohicket Road. And one of the things we've learned in conversations with the county and the people who are supporting the county, including some very good professional engineers, is, and John reminds me of this all the time, if it doesn't improve the traffic on Bohicket Road, it won't happen. So one of the things that was said, which I found most interestingly, is if you're proposing 2 stop signs and maybe a passing lane someplace, that is not a solution to traffic on Bohicket Road. So that's not going to fly. So they're talking about major improvements. Now, there are 3 segments of Main Road Corridor Project. Segment A, as I think all of you know, goes from Bees Ferry Road, north of 17, all the way down to Chisholm Road, which is beyond the sort of intersection after you cross over the bridge as you come south. That segment, which is called Segment A, is funded and approved. They actually know what they're going to do. And what it will end up looking like and being is a flyover as you're going north, so you won't even stop at Highway 17, you'll cross it. And Highway 17 will not stop, and you'll end up with an extended cloverleaf function that will allow traffic to flow much more easily. They've decided on which option they're going to use. They're doing the engineering now, and then they'll do the land acquisition and go from there. But that will become realistic in 5 years. So we've got to get between now and 5 years from now before even that'll help us. Segment B, which starts then at Chisholm Road and goes south to Maybank Highway, is not approved at this point and is not funded, even though it has a funding source, because the county is concerned that if 526 gets done and connects somewhere over near the intersection of River Road and Maybank Highway, there will be much less traffic on Main and Bohicket Road. And they may not need to improve segment B, okay? So it's kind of in abeyance. However, segment C, which impacts us greatly, is the stretch of Bohicket Road from Highway 700, Maybank Highway, all the way down to Betsy Carrison. And the county has decided that based on traffic studies now and in the future, that segment has to be improved regardless of what happens to 526. So that's approved, funded, it's going to happen. And as all of you know, the county has floated out 5 alternatives for residents and members of this community to look at and comment on. We encouraged most of our residents to respond to that, and many did, individually saying, here's what I think, and here's why. The town, under John's guidance and the mayor's guidance, developed actually it was the previous mayor's guidance, developed a statement from the town, not specifying which of the 5 options we thought was best, but outlining the guidelines for what we thought ought to drive the decision. For example, if one of the options, which was just let's improve and sort of create 4 lanes of highway on Bohicket, some of which would be divided highway and some of which would just be attached 4 lanes. One of the shortfalls of that solution is it would leave a lot of our traffic ending up at the corner of, successfully getting there, but ending up at the corner of Maybank Highway and let's call it Bohicket or Main Road, where it all comes together. And there is no legislation or improvement or plan to improve Maybank Highway. So what happens there is the crisis that already exists on Maybank Highway every morning and every afternoon would get worse, not better. So from the town's perspective, we have to seek an alternative that actually guides more traffic over to what will be the intersection of River Road and Maybank Highway. For 2 reasons. One is many of our residents are going through that West Ashley corridor to get to the city, number 1. And number 2, that's near the intersection of where 526 will eventually intersect with us. So if you want to get the traffic over there, you got to find a way to get them there. So we have some work to do. Fortunately, John Taylor and the other people who've been working on this already have integrated themselves with a task force who's already active on this project, headed by a gentleman whose name is John Zolar. And the mayor and I are going, and the city manager, I think, are going to meet with him on Friday of this week, along with John Taylor, so that we can better understand what that task force is doing and how we can integrate ourselves into that and get the Johns Island community, Seabrook, and ourselves all involved in the same place. So we're going to be doing that. In addition to that, our council representative for us, this is District 9, right, Steph? Are we in District 9?
I'm not sure what district, Honeycutt.
I think it's District 9. District 9 is Jenny Honeycutt. So she's our council representative for this area. And what she represents is Seabrook, Kiowa, and James Island, as opposed to Johns Island. She is a strong advocate for 526, which is good. She also, it turns out, used to live, one of the things we learned from her in meeting with her, she used to live in, forgot the name of the subdivision, St. John's Woods? Is that what it's called? St. John's Woods, which is that community right there on Maybank Highway. So she's very familiar with the congestion that already exists on Maybank Highway and can be a real advocate for us. And she, as well as a representative from District 8, I think it is, are going to be terribly important. Is it 8?
Anna Johnson,
Yeah, Anna. Those two representatives will be critical to us getting this moved forward. So one of our key things this year is to work together with our partners and get this thing moving as smoothly as we can and to make sure that the town's voice, along with others, is heard. But I think we have a good chance, and if we can get that in the right direction, that could help us a lot in this next 5-year period to get us to the 10-year period where maybe 526 is happening. John, you want to add to that, the context of where we are? Okay.
The only thing I think is the efforts to use the word, the presentation I gave council on the alternatives, I think I used the word sort of beyond the gates. I think Mr. Prickett did talk about bolstering the town's ability to engage with stakeholders beyond sort of the gates. And so I think that's the
Critical.
priority, I think, that should be highlighted. It's just being able to engage more to sort of, I know there'll be folks who will never necessarily kind of deal with key law because of past things, but I think being able to bridge some of the gaps and have a voice beyond the key law proper is going to be important.
Yeah, we would be putting ourselves at risk if we were simply representing people on Kiowa who needed to get back and forth to the city. That doesn't make sense for us. Anyway, so that's where we are in that. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. Next, if there's not any other questions, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Just to add, Dan, and thank you, John Taylor, Dan and I and Stephanie met with Jenny Honeycutt, and she echoed the comments, the advice that you gave us, at the workshop way back when, that we have to be a player, we have to be, assertive, and exactly what Dan says, we've got to be talking about far more than just, time. There's safety issues, hazard, emergency, all of those types. Really build a case. So your advice even a month ago or so was well said, but she echoed that. And
she really did. And she's going to be a great advocate for us.
Yeah.
Okay, the next portion, Dorota, who's the head of our finance department, is going to talk to us a little bit about the budget cycle.
Okay, so the budget is a financial plan that is pretty much one of the most important documents that is approved by council. It's actually required by the South Carolina law that the budget is approved and adopted before the start of the new year. And we do report or use a fiscal year. So we start our year on July 1st and end on June 30th. The budget process is a couple months process that we'll look into a detailed calendar in a little bit, but there is a number of steps that are taken through the process. So first is establishing or hearing the council. What are your goals? What are projects that we want to include in the budget? And today is a good start. It's a kickoff of the budget because for example, we had a project that Brian mentioned, the new, consider a staffing new person or So that's something that the staff wants to hear, to include in a proposal to you. Of course, there is some projects come along the year. We don't know of them yet, but it's a good time to think of what we want to accomplish, what we want to, if there's anything that community needs, and this all comes to this. It's communicated to the staff, so we can include or put a number to those initiatives. The next item is we look at. We have a few policies that we want to continue. First one is the fund balance policy. So it's actually a formalized policy that our fund balance, and the fund balance just like very simple, it's pretty much what we have in the bank. It's cash in our investments. So our policy is that we do not want to go less than 30% of the total budgeted expenditures. As of December 31st, our fund balance was at about 9.5 million, which is 140% of the expenditures. So let's say for a year and 4 months we don't earn any revenues, but we can continue operating. But the least that we want to go is 30%, so pretty much 4 months. So that's a good level of reserves. Yes, sir.
Okay, just so I understand the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4 pages back where you have the fund balances.
Uh-huh.
I'm just trying to flip to the 140%.
So this is
6.5 was the general fund budget, but it had the $2 million for the payoff of the loan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 4.5. I can't foot to the 140%.
So okay, so the fund balance. This is as of 12/30 of December. So we still have 6 more months. This is budgeted, so projected what's going to be at 6/30/2021. But please remind me.
How you got the calculation of 140%? I'm not able to.
Go back to the fund balance.
No, I understand. So so
it's 9.5 divided by something. I'm trying to figure.
So the total expenditures, which is the that's your total expenditures of the general fund.
I understand that, but of that 6.5, 2 million of it was what we paid off on the note.
That is correct, but
so
you want to back it out, the 2 million?
So a typical general fund, the budget would be closer to $4.5 million, $5 million.
No, no. Our fund balance right now, the general fund is 11 million.
Okay.
It's accumulated for.
No, okay. These were just moments in time. So the 9.5 million is a moment in time. The 140% is a moment in time. But typically we're going to have a fund. We're going to have unassigned fund balance is going to be a lot greater than 140%. I guess
that is correct, because this year we actually have an extraordinary expense of the paying of the bond of 2 million. So the 2 million would not be normally part of it. We usually run as 200%. So we usually run at that we can operate for two years.
That was the point.
Okay.
I'm sorry. That was the point I was trying to make sure everybody understood that.
This year is a little different because, like I said, it's an extraordinary event of paying off the mortgage or the bond, which is pretty much like a mortgage. But normally we are at 200%, closer.
That's the point.
So this is what I'm used to referring to as days cash on hand.
That's correct. This is cash basis too, yes. Mm-hmm.
No, I understand. So everybody understands. 30% is the minimum, but we're running at something exceedingly far greater.
Yes, Mayor. Sorry, I didn't understand. Yes,
yeah,
but
I didn't say it right.
Yes. So we also have 2 more policies. That was the one on the emergency fund.
was created just a couple years ago, and with pretty much the experiences with the hurricanes we had, and seeing the cost of how much it costs to clean up after the hurricane, we decided that we will put 20% of hospitality and local accommodation tax aside and designate that money for future cleanups or any other emergency situations. Same thing with the capital improvement fund. However, that wasn't new. It was something that actually Mayor Labriola, he created it or initiated creation of it when he was on council, and we continue with that. So this is the money that we actually had to, it was designated for the parkway. We can use it for the parkway. And so before we can spend everything else, we want to make sure that those policies are in place. So then we'll see what else is left in, for spending.
So just so that I'm clear, out of this capital improvements fund, that's where, say, this $40,000 that we need to pay for irrigation repairs would come out of?
That's correct. Yes, this is actually, yes, the landscaping, the whole project will be paid from that. Mm-hmm.
And DeRuta, the $4.3 million, again, is net of the monies that have been put into beach renourishment or hurricane cleanup over these past...
Yes, that's what actually right now, it's not what we have spent. This is what we have in the bank that is designated for those purposes.
So it's not unencumbered money. I mean, some of it's already been designated for
Well, designated by our policy. So right now...
No, wait, let me ask you a different question.
Oh.
So we have a balance of $4.3 billion.
Yes.
Do we have payables against that?
No, no,
Okay.
no, no.
But my point, John, was that it's net of all of, it's net of expenses that we have been spending on these past years.
Yes.
So it's a...
Yes.
But we don't have a $1 billion bill sitting out there that we haven't paid yet. Is
No,
that what I'm saying?
no.
Got it.
And again, those are the numbers mid-year after 6 months. And after pretty much a big project, the project Parkway that was, we close to the completion. The only portion that is left is landscaping that we haven't spent. However, we actually not paying from the reserves. We're paying it from other sources, the landscaping. So the next step is the revenue projections. This is not historically, but in the past we used historical data, and it was pretty good projections. Based on the projections we have, were pretty close to the actuals. The last year was a little challenging because the island pretty much was closed for over a month, so that made it a little harder. But when you look at, I just want to give you an idea and pick the 5 years for the main revenues, and you'll see a trend that we have this steady growth in our revenues. One thing that is important to remember is that we do not have a set or fixed revenue like property taxes. All our revenues are pretty much dependable on economy and tourism. So yet though, like I said, there is a growth in all those revenues. And so once we have good projections, and we pretty much during Ways and Means, it's like a budget workshop or the budget meeting. So one Ways and Means is designated for the revenues. So I'll present again the 5 years history, the projections, and 5-year projections in the future. So then yes, sure.
The line there that says accommodations tax county.
Yes.
2%, is that the one they're not going to pay anymore?
Not anymore, like this year. This is not forever. So the county, because the county was, well, everyone was,
That's when they chose to stop paying.
just for this year, right, well, we didn't get last year, the county tax we get in 2 payments. And last year they gave us the first payment. We received the first payment, but we never got the second payment due to closures of all of the hotels. And they also originally said they will not receive anything for this year. However, they will do the review of their actuals, and if they exceeded what was budgeted or projected, we'll get some money. So this is not forever. We're not going to get that county tax, but temporarily.
So the 220 column, the 2020 column over there is fiscal year 2020.
That's correct. That ended on June 30th, 2020. Mm-hmm.
Before you move, I have one more question.
Sure.
I've asked it many times and I can't get it straight in my mind.
Yeah.
Out of the accommodations tax monies and restricted funds,
Mm-hmm.
are those limited by projects? Because it sounded to me like I heard the state tax was limited by projects, and the others, do they have a time restriction on them?
So with the accommodation taxes, the state accommodation tax is the most restricted. It has spending restriction and time restriction. The state accommodation has to be spent within 2 years.
So if you don't spend it, they claw it back?
Yes, but we have not run
I
into
understand
that
that. I
problem.
just understand the rules.
Yes.
Okay.
It has to be spent within 2 years. But because of 2 years, so you can roll over. You use 1 year, and then whatever is not used, you go to second year, and then spend that first before you.
Okay, so it's first in, first out.
That's correct.
Okay.
So maybe that's why you don't really need to.
That's
Yeah. So that's yes. And the other ones are the county. I want to say it also has a time restriction because with the county, and they started doing it like maybe 4 years ago, we signed a contract with them. So we have to present them how we want to spend the money. They give us an estimate, and we present them if those those projects qualify for the accommodation taxes. So once they sometimes question it. So I want to say it also has a 1 year restriction because it has to be spent. They promise us 420,000 last year, so we had to account for 420,000. The other hospitality not county but local, there is really no oversight per se. However, I have to send our financial statements to the state, so there is an oversight, but we never were questioned about it. So there is probably a little less of a time restriction on those two than county and state. So the next step is drafting the operating budget, and that's usually comes from the department heads, provide us their requests, and then we implement the projects or the initiatives that came from the mayor and the council. And then we look at the capital planning and budget. And, just to remember, we have 3 big assets: beach, parkway, and this building. Of course, like little, vehicles and little smaller stuff. But we're trying to plan ahead, and the capital improvement plan is, of course, it's a work in progress because things have changed. But we know of the beach renourishment coming up, so we're trying to save up for that. Vehicles need replacement. The building is newer. However, there are some items that probably will need another look or, increased maintenance. So we're trying to implement this all in a budget plan. So with all this, you will see a first draft, and that's another pretty much Ways and Means meeting that and we'll get your feedback. Then the budget needs to be, and it's also per law, needs to be advertised, and the public hearing has to be held. and then the budget is adopted. And it requires 2 readings. So just to put this on a little perspective, when are we gonna do this? So this is a kickoff, like I said. Today is your the time where you learn about some initiatives that we want to do, and we hear your goals. Then in next month at the Ways and Means, we're gonna look at the revenues. The following month, in March, we're gonna look at the expenditures and pretty much first draft. Then one item that was already talked about, the state accommodation tax. So Stephanie was talking about the 30% that goes to CVB, but there is the remaining part is reviewed by the state accommodation tax committee, and that's a big chunk of money. To usually runs a little over $1 million. So this committee meets and they recommend to you all, and it's implemented in the budget. And then in May there is a first hearing, and in June it's adopted with the second hearing.
Excuse me, the ATAX committee, who's on that?
So.
Procedures of that's the one that has to do some work from the.
Yes, so it's also the committee members, or the state law really regulates, administration of that money, even who can be on that committee, not particularly, but has to be a representation from the hospitality, tourism, resident from the town. So yes, we have a committee pretty much that has been serving for years with almost the same. It's the same group of people. So just want to give you like a very brief overview of the budget, of this year budget. This Ways and Means in January, this month. We'll look at a little closer at the budget and actual expenditures. So we'll have those reviews every quarter. So this year it was something new too, because we very rarely amend the budget, but this year there was also a budget amendment. And again, it was pretty much caused because of the unknown situation with the pandemic. When we were approving the budget, it was May, June, and the island was closed. We really didn't know what to expect for the oncoming months. So we had very conservative revenue projections, and at that time, everyone felt we pretty much projected the first quarter of this year at 50% of what we have earned in last year, and 75% for the second quarter. Well, luckily, our projections were, like I said, conservative, but actuals exceeded the projections. And there was a lot of, not a lot, there was a number of items that were tabled. We were to pretty much approve very balanced budget and balanced budget. So the amendment kind of gave us a chance to revisit and put those projects, like one of them was the website design and some others. But, and we'll talk about it the Ways and Means. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just want to give you a quick idea about our revenue sources. So building revenues, building permits, that's the revenue that is generated by permits, or pretty much every construction project, renovations, new construction needs a permit. Business licenses, every business on the island, every entity doing business on the island needs a license. Franchise fees, we have contracts with beach services for setting up umbrellas and chairs on the beach with cable company and AT&T for 3% pretty much of the revenues what they make on the island comes to us, and that's pretty much statewide. Every jurisdiction does it. Local option sales tax, it's a part of our sales tax, that 11% that you pay at the store, so that's 1% of that. State, local, and county accommodation taxes, that's the taxes that are paid with rentals. Hospitality tax, that's a tax that you pay on the prepared food in a restaurant or a grocery store. Solid waste fees, that's the garbage fees that we charge for garbage pickup. Interest, it's on the investment, and other revenues are court fines, miscellaneous planning fees that John collects. What else is in other?
Druda, just explain, who all do we charge solid waste fees to?
So we provide a garbage collection for the residents, and every service but curbside we charge. So if you are to take your garbage out to the curb, you're not going to charge. The town pays for it. Carolina Waste is our provider, and for all the residents, like I said, with the curbside, we subsidize this, and the town pays for it. So if you choose to have your garbage picked up from your garage back door, then we charge you. Not that we charge you, but Carolina Waste charges us, so we still subsidize just part of it, but not the whole cost is pushed to the customer.
So everybody, just to draw their attention, so $600,000 is what we get in, and $1,034,000 is what goes out.
Yes.
To them, so we're subsidizing to $400,000.
That's correct. So this is really not the revenue, if it's pretty much offset of the cost that is the waste disposal cost. We're still subsidizing, like the mayor said, $400,000 of it, but we're showing it on a separate line items.
In terms of garbage, if the contractor brings a dumpster and puts it, in the driveway while he's remodeling it?
No, that's something different. No, we don't. Yeah, we don't. And there's commercial entities on the island. We don't. They separate. We do offer the Solar Rail, the 21 Beach Walker, the not commercial, but for the residents, the big dumpsters.
Included in this waste management cost is if I have backdoor service, I pay a fee.
Yes.
If I have backdoor service twice a week, I pay a different fee.
That's correct.
But the town subsidizes the debris pickup on Thursdays or Friday anyway. I don't pay anything extra for that. Is that a Carolina Waste contract?
Yes. It's Carolina Waste. The debris pickup and the recycle pickup, the every quarter brown trash pickup when you put. Right. So we pay for that. We don't charge for that.
That's all included in this $400,000 difference.
Yes. So that's pretty much how our revenue pool comes in, and I'm not really gonna go into expenditures too much because again, in 2 weeks on Monday we're gonna review it, in a little more detail. But just to give you an idea, the personnel cost is pretty much the biggest cost of the budget, and a lot of operations, couple of contracts. And of course, if there is a capital project that takes some money from it. And I have just one more thing on the budget, and again, I'm not going to spend, just to give you like a taste of it. We report on the on funds. So the budget I presented was all consolidated, but we do have funds. We have 9 different funds. They operate like their own little entities, pretty much. So just again, I don't want to take too much time of it and on it, and we'll talk about it at the Ways and Means, and during the budget discussions, we'll pretty much talk about every fund. Any questions on budget? I have one more item that is important. So, our business license is a big business license revenue. It's a big chunk of the money. It's about 44% of our whole pool of the revenues, and the business license is the fee that is levied. It's a tax levied on businesses that are doing business on the island, and that is also rentals or any business that is doing business on the island. There is a new law that was approved in September by the South Carolina General Assembly. They were talking about 4 years, and the law is pretty much to help standardize the business license process, administration of it, because every jurisdiction have a business license, and every businesses or entities, they do businesses in different jurisdictions. It was a lot of hardship on them to apply for the businesses, because there was different expiration dates, different classes that were applied. So just a lot of administration time spent on something that shouldn't be. So anyway, that law is trying to standardize the process, and it's going to be effective next year. And there was a couple of items that we have to implement or do or have done already to comply with the new law. And we need to adopt a new business license ordinance. We need to do it sometime this year. And what we'll do probably, we do have a one, but we probably just gonna amend it and adopt the new one that is suggested by the Municipal Association. Comply with the expiration of the business licenses. Right now our licenses are on an annual basis, and they expire in December 31st, and the businesses have 2 months, like a grace period to apply, meaning by the end of February. On March 1st, we start charging late fees. Now everyone is in South Carolina is the license will expire on April 30th. So this year, we just extended this year licenses. So 2021 will expire in April rather than December of 2022. So we already done that. The basis for the calculation for the business license needs to be on the gross receipts, and we already been doing that, so there's no change on our end.
Deruta, is there discretion on the amount of our license, or is that law too?
So the fees? The fees.
Yeah.
So the fees, it's up to us. And during the budget process, during the revenue process, I start working on it, just a comparison of the fees with different jurisdictions.
What other places?
Just to give you an idea if we want to change them or we want to continue to have the same schedule. So this is up to the jurisdiction, the fee. The class is not, because it's because the fee also depends on the class. So that's pretty much regulated by IRS and the professional codes that are assigned to certain professions.
Are those fees currently just a fixed percentage, or is it some sort of tier system?
It's a tier system. It depends on the class, and then within the class, it depends. It's declining rate. It's For example, it's $55 base fee, and then for the first million is $2.50. Then after $2 million is $1, and so it's a declining scale. But again, we'll look at them at the February meeting, Ways and Means. And one thing that will also help those businesses is there will be one centralized portal that you can apply for a license, and there will be state will offer that. And so you can apply for a license and just pick a jurisdiction you want to do and do it at one time, and one click, one login, rather than right now you have to go to different portals and apply for those licenses. We do need to offer that option. However, they don't have to do it. They can still pay with us and apply with us. And we will continue with the rental licenses that they're going to be using our portal, because we require a lot of different information that the state portal would not handle. And the state doesn't do a lot of vetting in the application. You just put your application and it will calculate a fee. While we do require, for example, for the contractors to have a current license with the state. I think that's mainly it for the contractors. But yeah, so we do some vetting with the applications. And we also have a folder for audit if we see some shady people that always, report $2,000 every year. So we, so that's pretty much it for with those changes. At first, we were thinking that maybe we'll see some shortfall in the revenue, but I don't think we will. However, the municipal association is offering some help with assessing that, so I'm going to take advantage of that. But based on the change, I don't really see that a lot of changes is going to, or it will affect municipalities that have manufacturers. They will see some revenue shortfalls. They're going to have to probably change the rates, but we don't have any manufacturers on the island. So that's it, what I have.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
Sidebar comment on what Dorota just said relative to the standardization. This is enormously helpful. If you're a contractor doing business on the island and you're doing business in 5 jurisdictions, you had different deadlines, different rates, different everything, and it's very hard as a small business to try to keep up with all of it. This way you can go to one place, put it all in. It also does, sidebar to the state, it allows the state to look at all your revenues and make sure you're paying taxes across the board. So the person who's slipping a little bit, and yet when they file their income tax returns, it looks different, somebody's going to catch it. So there's some positive sides to this, but I think overall for the good business people, it's a real plus, and it'll be good for us. Next, I want to talk a little bit about Ways and Means overall. First of all, we have a new schedule this year. So for all of you, and remember, the members of Ways and Means are the members of council. So you're all an honorary official member, not just honorary, official member of Ways and Means. We're going to meet typically the Monday of the week before council meets, and we're going to meet at 3 p.m. on that Monday afternoon. So be prepared for that.
The week before the day?
It's the week before. Yeah, it's the week before the first. So it's usually the last week of the month that is the Monday. The responsibilities of Ways and Means for all of us is making recommendations to town council on budgets, what we just talked about, methods of funding, any procurement or contracts, or any other financial matters that face the town. The importance of that meeting is that's where we really get into the details of what is this contract, why is it here, what are we paying, and what are our safeguards and so on. When it then, once you've looked at it, it goes to council, council then becomes much more efficient because you've seen it, we've hashed out the details, and we can move it along in the next council meeting. So the issues really ought to come up at Ways and Means if we have a concern about something. So that's good, and we'll get familiar with it. And even in our first meeting, which is later this month, there's a number of contracts up for renewals and stuff, so we'll be looking at the kind of stuff you'll see in Ways and Means. In addition to that, I want to mention two things. One is, you know, the town is in good financial condition, and that's because a number of councils, including the last one, did a good job in managing the resources of the town. That's important, and it builds over time. It's why we have fund balances where they are today. And so it wasn't by accident. It's really been by good stewardship over a long period of time that the town's in the position it is. But DeRota raised a very important thing. All of our revenue comes from current activity that goes on in the town. One of our concerns, and we have two things strategically we're going to work on this year as a Ways and Means Committee in addition to our normal duties. The first one is to outline and detail what we would need to do in the case of a critical financial emergency. Now you say, well, how can this happen? We've done all this good stuff. We've built up our funds. We're in good shape. Well, here's what it's likely to be, if ever. It's likely to be a major storm hitting this island directly. The Hugo-like storm hitting us dead on. If that happens, two things happen. Our expenses go through the roof because we've got cleanup, we've got destruction of property, we've got a whole bunch of things happening, and our revenues drop like a rock. Nobody's at the resort, nobody's doing contracting work, so you have the worst storm. No money coming in and expenses going through the roof. What would we do? So we're going to sit down this year and actually do an outline of what are the steps we would take, legal and otherwise, to put ourselves in a position to fund the town in the case of the worst crisis we could imagine. And while that can be adopted and changed slightly over time, we need a base plan, a place where we go immediately. So we've talked to our bond attorneys about, do we float a bond issue? Do we levy a property tax? What are the things we can and cannot do? What are they, how much, and where would we go for? So at least then, we've got, sitting in a drawer, a game plan to take on the minute something like that happens. Now, the probability of that happening, pretty small. But it's sort of like when we talked about the bridge, you know. Our bridge getting on and off the island's in pretty good shape. We've got a backup plan. The odds of it going out are tiny. But if it goes out, it's a crisis. Same applies here. Big storm hits us dead on, we better be in a position to scramble. So that's one of the things we're going to do. The second thing we're going to do is a little less extraordinary, but we want to carefully examine how we are investing our money. Now, this is not because there's anything wrong, but what's happened is very extraordinary. It used to be fixed income instruments could get you, if you'll just look at your mortgage rates, fixed income instruments could easily earn you 5%, 6%. So by law, there are real limitations on what DeRota can invest in. And we can't invest in equities, for example. So, you know, a lot of people who are trying to be conservative today are investing in high quality, dividend paying stocks. You know, it's a good investment and they're earning 3.5% on it. We can't do that as a town. So one of the reasons the last council made the decision to pay off a very low interest rate bond, 138, is that what it was, 138? Why would you pay that off? Well, in normal times you never would, except our ability to earn on those funds is 75 basis points less than that. So if we can only earn 20 or 30 basis points on our money, we can't afford to be spending 1.38 as an earn. So since we had the additional funds, we paid off the bond early. There was no prepayment penalties. And now we basically saved ourselves 100 basis points over the next 3 years. That made sense. But what we do want to do is make sure that we have looked at all of our investment options and we're optimizing our duration, not taking additional risks that we don't understand, and making sure that everything we're doing earns us the basis points we need to do. So that's our second sort of strategic item we'll take on this year. Other than that, we need to do a good job of continuing to manage ourselves on a monthly basis, and I think we will. Dorota, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think.
Those are our two things we'll worry about. Yes, John?
So this $9.5 million that we've got, where does it sit today?
In investments.
In investments.
Investments.
Just not one that earns much.
That's
Right,
correct.
yeah.
Yes.
Sort of like what you guys home.
Yeah, it's a,
Yeah, not much, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say,
I mean, everybody's,
it earns a little bit, but not a lot.
the reason the real estate market is taking off is you can get a, fixed rate loan today for how much? 2%, 2.5%? Well, as an investor, you're getting a lot less than that. That's our problem. I mean, it's not a big problem, but it's a little problem. Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Dan, very, very good. Deruta, thank you. Very, very good. Any questions from
No.
either?
Nope, no questions came in from the public.
Okay.
Do we have anybody in the public listening to this?
Yes.
Can you tell?
There's 2 viewers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know Wendy and Kathy were wanting to listen, so I'm guessing it's maybe those two.
Okay, thank you all very, very much. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well prepared. Thank you. Tomorrow morning we start at 8:30.
Tomorrow, we start at 8 o'clock
8
for
o'clock for
breakfast,
breakfast, and
but then the meeting
meeting
called to order
starts
8:30.
8:30. And so,
Good job.
good stuff. Adjourn the meeting or just,
We have adjourned the meeting so that Stephanie can officially turn off the live stream.
okay. Motion to adjourn?
Think so?
Any, okay, meeting adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.